Okay, so this is gonna be a super weird stream, but I hate doing roundup videos so much that I've decided I'm just gonna we're just gonna outsource the decision making process. There, that's the idea behind this stream right here. Cause why make decisions when you can just ask people to make the decisions for you? Damn it, Discord load. So anyway, while like ultimately I want this to like I want people's thoughts on this list right here. I'm very strongly considering removing all three of these boards. Because they cost too much, and it's just like when I end up shooting the video, I was like, how do I defend their existence in the list? Anyway, okay, Discord finally decided to function. Okay. So, yeah. Like, because the thing is like, I'm supposed to do a motherboard roundup for Gamers Nexus for the end of 2020. And what are your thoughts on the ASRock? That's not even like what even is that? I don't like. I'm gonna have to look that up. ASRock Desk Mini X300. Like that's so not for me. What is right? So it comes with an APU. Supports overclocking. Oh, cool. Yeah, but it doesn't look like anything I would ever actually use. Like that looks like a novelty thing. Like that to me is like, oh yeah, I'd totally get this and overclock it for the same reason I overclocked a pre-built. It's not something I would ever actually use. Got mine 5950 XX570 Tomahawk. Why did you decide to go for the X570 Tomahawk? Like, I'd love to know why people buy that board, because, like, I looked at it when I was making this list, and it's just, like, it's an expensive B550. Let me just pull it up. Like, that's basically a lot of my criteria is, like, can I get a motherboard that costs less and does the same thing? If yes, then the motherboard doesn't get into the list. Actually, let's put this into a new window. So, like, yeah, it's got a good VRM, but you can get good VRMs on B550 just fine, so we don't need a Tomahawk for that. What else? The rear I/O is a disaster, as far as I'm concerned. Like, this right here is depressing. This is what? Oh, actually, it's not as bad as the X570 Godlike, but it is pretty bad. What do you think B550 Gaming Edge comes with Valhalla for free? I don't consider free games with the motherboards because if it's a temporary thing, then it's going to make the motherboard outdated. I mean, make the video outdated eventually. So I don't consider I don't factor in like temporary discounts and like combo deals because I don't know how long they're going to last. Honorable mentions, yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing a honorable mentions video. People love Tomahawk because it says X570. Yeah, that's what I suspect. Like, I really suspect a lot of people buy X570 because it says X570, even though X570 doesn't really do anything. And you can get B550 motherboards that absolutely wipe the floor with X570 motherboards when it comes to overclocking. BZ is the B550 Aorus ITX good board for memory overclocking. It should, yeah. Like, it depends how much memory overclocking you want to do. X570 Extreme going into your next build. Why? Tell me why. Don't just say which board you're getting. I want to hear why you're getting that board. Because the problem is, like, I'm so removed from, like, real, like, because, like, I am basically, like, my personal system is basically a gaming build that just so happens to sometimes have to, like, record video. I don't edit, right? So I don't need to export videos. I don't need to do transcoding. It's just like, what do you think about the Dark Hero? I think it costs too much. It's $400. It only, like, for an X570 board, it only has 2 M.2 slots. Which is like, so why do we have the X570 chipset if you're only pulling 1 M.2 slot off of it? Right, like, you can get a B550 with 2 M.2 slots. You can get a B550 with a perfectly good VRM as well. There's no point having 90 amp smart power stages in like 14 90 amp smart power stages. It doesn't make a difference. The only thing on the Dark Hero that I think is really cool is the ability to go between static overclocking and the boost system dynamically. That's really cool, but I've never had a chance to test it. And if that makes like a 5% multi-threaded difference or something, then it's like, I'm not paying $400 for that. Like, it just doesn't make sense to spend $400 to get a feature which gives you 5% more CPU performance, right? Unless you literally don't have a budget. I got a Strix B550 F gaming because it was discounted. Okay, that's a good reason. It was cheap. Something being cheap, that's a great reason. Something, like, if you're buying an expensive board, it's like, why are you paying so much? How do you feel about the X570 Unify? That board's on the list. The Unify is on the list. Actually, like, honestly, because I think the Unify kind of is, like, the defining X570 motherboard. Well, no, the problem is, like, feature-wise, I think the X570 Tai Chi is, like, optimal, right? You've got the option of 3 M.2 slots. You've got your option of 8 SATA ports. You can't use both at the same time. You have a postcode, power button, reset button, right? You have a VRM capable of overclocking a 16-core. You've got all that good stuff. You've got 1 gig LAN, which admittedly isn't as good as, like, say, the 2.5 gig that you get on the Unify. But if you don't have a 2.5 gig switch, it doesn't matter if you have a 1 gig or a 2 gig. It has clear CMOS in the rear I/O. It has BIOS flashback. The only problem with this motherboard is it's made by ASRock, and the BIOS for it it's not as bad as it used to be, but I would still rather have an MSI BIOS. I paid X570 Tomahawk. Why do people get the Tomahawk? I don't get it. Like, why don't you just get a B550 board instead of the Tomahawk? The X570 Tomahawk. Wait, did I pull up the X57? Wait. Yeah, this is the X570 Tomahawk. It's like, all I see is a B550 board with a chipset fan. Like, that's what I see when I look at this. Because you can get a very similar VRM on a B550 board. You can get troubleshooting LEDs for less money on a B550 board. You can get an arguably better rear I/O on a B550 board. Why? So, I run a Discord server with almost 40k people for... Dark Hero is like yelling at a brick wall. Lol. Asus TUF X570. That board actually got into the list. That board's on the list. Not so much because of the VRM, but because it has it's the cheapest motherboard with 8 SATA ports. So it's like, that's one of the things you can't get on B550. You can't have, like, I've not found a B550 board with 8 SATA ports. Which I think is just a limitation of the chipset. So it's like, yeah, if you need 8 SATA ports, then this is a perfectly sensible motherboard. It's also cheaper than the B550 Aorus Pro, which is like my go-to B550 motherboard, because this thing's a beast. You know, great VRM, great overclocking capabilities. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a postcode. I really like the rear I/O just being a bunch of USB ports. I'm a sucker for USB ports. It has, like, this also has an internal Type-C, which I don't think the TUF has. Yeah, this doesn't seem to have an internal Type-C header. But the thing is, like, yeah, I can get... But the thing is, the TUF is also sometimes, like, $10, $20 cheaper than the Aorus Pro. So it's like, yeah, between these two boards, that's, like, really depends what you want to do. And either of them's fine. But then when you get into the high-end boards, it's like, if you have one M.2 SSD and a GPU, and you're spending $300 or more on your motherboard, there is something really wrong with your decision-making process. Because it's like, why? Because, oh yeah, and the other sort of, like, defining feature for the high-end, like, well, not high-end, but X570 boards is the PCIe slots. You can't really get a B550 motherboard with two X8 PCIe slots, right? So you can't get like SLI support on B550 boards. But, or at least like the B550 motherboards that have SLI support cost the same amount of money as X570 boards, at which point it's just like, now, you know, now it's like, okay, now it makes more sense to get a $200-ish X570. BZ, thoughts on X570 Ace? The X570 Ace is literally a Unify, but $50 more expensive. Like, seriously. Like, that is another board where it's like, why do people get that? Also, I'm not going to search in my browser on stream. I just, like, I don't want to know what kind of, like, suggestions it pulls up. So here's the Ace. Right? Here's the Unify. These are literally the same board. The only difference is the Wi-Fi. Actually, it's not even the Wi-Fi. It's the 1 gig LAN. That's the difference between an Ace and a Unify, is the 1 gig LAN. So why the hell would you pay $50 more to get the Ace? Right? Unless the Ace is going for the same price as the Unify, I really, really don't get why you would get this board. It's $50 more. It doesn't do anything that the Unify doesn't do. The Unify also has a less stupid postcode position. Like, this is like optimal location to get covered up by a 3090. If you buy a 3090 Founders Edition, you're not seeing that postcode. So Dark Hero is just too expensive. It's $400. It doesn't really do anything. Like the only thing the Dark Hero does that like a Unify doesn't do is the Dark Hero has less M.2 slots and it has the dynamic overclocking thing, which is like, I don't think that makes that much of a performance difference. So, you know, it's like, am I going to spend $100 more for 5% more CPU, maybe 10% more CPU performance? And actually 10% is pushing it. Like 10% more CPU performance would require that you run like 400 megahertz more core clock, which is like I think PBO on a 5950X pushes 4.4 gigahertz on like multi-threaded workloads. So you'd be talking like your CPU switching to 4.8 gigahertz all core, which is like, no, that's not happening. B550 Steel Legend. Yeah, B550 Steel Legend is a solid board. The thing is, I've kind of changed my mind about, like, the reason the Steel Legend doesn't get into the list is, like, the Steel Legend has the postcode, and I'm still a huge fan of having the postcode, but this is better at overclocking. The Aorus Pro is just better at overclocking, and it costs a similar amount. And it's like, so on the Aorus Pro, you won't know why it isn't booting, but it'll probably boot higher settings than the Steel Legend will. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing, is just like, well, you can either know what's wrong, or you can just not have the problem in the first place. Phantom Gaming Velocita, I have no idea. The X570 Phantom Gaming Velocita is a board that's another one of those boards where it's like, why does this exist? Because I looked it up, because I was like, ooh, exciting, we have some new motherboards. And then I looked at it, and it's like, it's a B550 board with an X570 chipset for some reason. It's also $250. Right, so this is the new X570 Velocita. So let's take a, like, rear I/O, what do we see? So basically a Unify in the back. Yeah, this is like an X570 Unify. Only two M.2 slots. It does have the 8 SATA ports, but again, if you need 8 SATA ports, you could get a TUF. Internal Type-C, which admittedly the TUF doesn't have, so if you do need that. But it's like, there's a lot of like sort of if situations, which I don't like. It's just like, you know, internal clear CMOS button is the most like, I don't get why they do an internal clear CMOS. Like, BIOS flashback external, clear CMOS internal is just like, so yeah, when my memory overclock fails, I'm gonna flash my BIOS. Yeah, that's a very reasonable way of setting up those buttons. And the thing is, like, the problem is, this board is basically, this thing is like $20 cheaper than the Tai Chi. And the Tai Chi just does more everything. You get, because the infuriating thing for me, when I saw this board initially, I thought, oh, the two, like, reinforced PCIe slots, this is going to have SLI support. Nope. Because that second slot runs off of the frickin' chipset. It runs at X4. And it's just like, so we have the same PCIe capabilities as a B550 board on a $250 X570. And if you spend $20 more, you can have a Tai Chi, which has more M.2 slots, has SLI support, has, you know, a clear CMOS button actually in the back of the board on the rear I/O instead of internally. And the only thing you lose is the 2.5 gig LAN. And at that point, it's just like, well, how many people here have 2.5 gig LAN switches? Right? X570 Godlike versus Formula. Both of those are stupid, and it, like, no. Why do you want an X570 Godlike or an X570 Formula? And actually, between those two, the Formula is stupid because the Formula is an overpriced version of the X570 Hero, and the Godlike, which actually the Godlike made it into the list, but it only made it into the list because there are niche scenarios where you might need the option to connect 3 devices to your CPU, and this is the only board that allows you to connect 3 PCIe cards to the CPU, because you can run X8, X4, X4. But look at this rear I/O. This is a rear I/O that if I got this on a $150 motherboard, I would complain about it, because this is unacceptable. And this is $700, and this is what you get. And that's 2.5 gig LAN, that's not even 10 gig. Like, what is wrong with the... Like, it's because MSI's ingenious idea was like, so first we give you this option, like this option to use all these PCIe lanes, right? We give you all this PCIe flexibility. And then we give you a 10 gig LAN card so that you lose one of your PCIe slots. And I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why isn't that built into the board? Anyway, thanks for the 1,000... I have no idea what currency that is, but thanks. Thanks a lot. So, you know, and it's like, I get it. If you need this PCIe slot layout, you don't have a choice. You unfortunately don't have a choice. But the Godlike, other than that, the Godlike is a really, really stupid motherboard that costs $700. And it's just like, yeah, so... As like, because that's the thing, is just like, so, and I have a similar problem with, like, the Extreme is currently on the list as well. And the thing with the Extreme is, like, this has ridiculous flexibility. But if you actually know what you want, okay, if you're not just buying a motherboard where it's like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my motherboard in the next, like, because then, you know, there's cheaper motherboards that do everything this does. Like, if you want 3 M.2 slots, Unify. If you want 10 gig LAN, there's the X570 Creator. There's also, I think, an even cheaper X570 board that'll give you 10 gig LAN. If you want a bajillion USB ports, you can just get a B550 Master. That has the same, I mean, not B550, X570 Master has, like, the same rear I/O. You just don't get 10 gig LAN anymore. If you want dual BIOS, X570 Master. If you want a passive chipset, get literally any B550 motherboard. Right? It's like, oh, I wanted passive chipset. Get a B550, damn it. And that's kind of the thing, is just like, so this board is like, that's why I want to ditch it, because it's like very conditional for when it makes sense to buy this board, in my opinion. And honestly, if you know what you're actually building, then you shouldn't need to buy this board. First build, I got B550 AORUS Master because it has decent USB and postcode. Did I goof? What should I have gotten? So the biggest problem with the Master, like, the Master is a very solid motherboard. It is, in my opinion, a little bit too expensive. And the biggest complaint I have for the Master is that the dual BIOS doesn't have a switch. Because if you're doing a lot of overclocking, you're going to have to just, like, the switchless dual BIOS is absolutely infuriating to work with. And unfortunately, you're like, if you do a lot of overclocking, you're going to know very soon exactly what I'm talking about. And like, and that is one of those boards, like, if Gigabyte just didn't put dual BIOS on that board, or they included the frickin' switches, because like this X570 Extreme, right, there's switches down here. You have switches for the dual BIOS. If the B550 Master had those switches, it would be infinitely better than it currently is, because right now it is so frustrating to work with. And the thing is, it's a really good overclocking board. It's just annoying. And by B550 motherboard standards, it's kind of too expensive. And also, like, I think a big part of the B550 Master for Gigabyte was like, oh, you get like a bunch of M.2 slots. But the way they get you all those M.2 slots is they steal PCIe lanes from the CPU, at which point it's like, why couldn't you just... Right, so the way this works, because you'll notice like, oh, it's got 3 M.2 slots, that's really cool, that's like an X570 feature. Yeah, except they're using PCIe switches from the CPU to get you those M.2 slots. So what I would have done if I was doing this was I would have just given you a second X8 PCIe lane and then included a PCIe to M.2 adapter card in the freaking motherboard like accessory package, because PCIe lanes are flexible. M.2 slots aren't flexible. You can't take an M.2 slot and convert it back into PCIe, at least not properly. Technically, there are adapter cards that, you know, are like, yeah, you can totally convert your M.2 slot into PCIe, but you really shouldn't do that. And also, it'll convert it back into X4. You can't go back to X8. And if you want to run SLI, you need X8. You can't run off of an X4. So basically, taking a PCIe slot and converting it into M.2, very sensible. Using an adapter, very sensible. Taking an M.2 slot and converting it back into PCIe, not sensible at all. So it's just like, yeah, it's... Unfortunately, I'm not sure most consumers understand how that works, so they're going to be more like, oh, it got a bunch of M.2s, and then they're like, why does my 3090 run at X8? It's because you've filled up those freaking M.2 slots. On that note, MSI has the B550 Unify doing the same thing. GRG, so many B550 PCIe stupidity with bottom M.2s disabling bottom X16. So the bottom X16 hangs off of the chipset. So they don't really have an option with that. Like, there's just not enough PCIe lanes on the Ryzen platform to have all of the stuff that you would really want. Right, like it's still only, you get 16 lanes on the CPU, then you get a well, the CPU has, no, you get 16 general purpose PCIe lanes from the CPU. And then the chipset has, I think 8 or something that you can just kind of use for whatever you want. Like, yeah, there's use cases for everything. There's a use case for almost anything, but if you don't know exactly what you're doing, a lot of motherboards don't make any sense. So if you want a lot of PCIe flexibility, then X570 makes sense, right? You can go for something like this, and you've got two 4.0 M.2 slots going off of the chipset, or if you want something with more SATA ports, there's the Tai Chi, yeah, like, if you just have a GPU, one M.2, and a bunch of SATA drives, get a B550. Also, I'm really failing the super chats because this is a very ranty live stream. The thing is like, I need to make decisions on, like, which motherboards to put into the Gamers Nexus motherboard roundup, and it's just like, I don't know why I should recommend a 700, like, why would you use the $700 board? Or, like, this board makes sense, like, if you want Thunderbolt 3 and 10 gig LAN, this is kind of the only board that does that. And so it's like, okay, this is kind of defensible. If you need Thunderbolt 3, this exists. But for a lot of other things, it's like, it's a stupid board. I'm actually thinking of getting the Aorus Master or the Strix X570E. Why? I really want to know why you're thinking of getting an X570 motherboard and not just a B550. B550 Tomahawk has what I consider completely unacceptable rear I/O. And the problem is, like, at the price point, you have a bunch of other boards that have similarly capable VRMs. Actually, it's not that bad on the rear I/O. So, oops. Here's the B550 Tomahawk. So I'm not really a big fan of this rear I/O. But other than that, I mean, so VRM, you get a good VRM on the B550 Aorus Pro from Gigabyte, you get a good VRM on the B550 Tough Gaming from Asus, you get a good VRM on the X570 Tough Gaming, you get, like, at this price point, this board is around $180. There's, like, 4 other motherboards that have a comparable VRM. You just like, so what does this board do? Okay, you get 6 SATA ports. Well, the Tough Gaming gives you 8, and the B550 the Aorus Pro gives you 6 as well. You get troubleshooting LEDs. Well, we've got that on the Tough Gaming. We've got that on the freaking Pro from Gigabyte as well. You get 2 M.2 slots. Well, that's actually just worse than some of the other boards. Like, that's the same as the other 2 boards as well, off the top of my head. So that's not an advantage. You get an internal Type-C, you get that on the Aorus Pro as well now. What else do you, like, yeah, so that's kind of it. Like, there's not really anything this motherboard does that the Aorus Pro doesn't do, except this motherboard gives you the dual LAN, which the Aorus Pro gives you only 2.5 gig. So if you do need the dual LAN, then it's like, okay, this actually makes sense if you have a use case for both of those LAN ports. But if you don't have a use case for both of those LAN ports, you're giving up USB ports and not gaining any extra features anywhere else on the motherboard because, well, it doesn't have anything else extra. So it's a silly motherboard in my opinion. Talk about the B550 mortar. B550 mortar is a very similar situation to the B550 Tomahawk. Mostly because it's basically a Tomahawk with the bottom cut off. What are we talking about? All AM4 motherboards. Absolutely all AM4 motherboards. Because I'm doing an end of the year roundup for AM4 motherboards for Gamers Nexus. And so this is sort of the current list, and I'm very strongly considering axing the top half of it, or maybe just these 2, because these are $700 boards. They really don't make sense under most circumstances. Like, there's just, like, if you need a certain number of SATA ports, there's the Tough, there's the Tai Chi. Where is the Tai Chi? Oh, apparently I deleted the Tai Chi. We need to put that back on there. That got deleted because I hate Asus ASRock BIOS. Anyway, so Tai Chi. And that is a roughly 270 USD board right now. Anyway, so this is like cool for the connectivity, but then you have like these boards, which is like, this is literally only because of the PCIe slot layout. And then, yeah, I have A520 boards on the list. Because the thing is, if you're not overclocking, like, as long as the board has a heatsink, A520 will do memory overclocking. And B450, like, the funny thing is, like, the biggest difference between A520 and B4, there's actually, like, basically no difference between A520 and B450 on the really cheap motherboards. Because if you buy a really cheap B450 motherboard, you shouldn't be overclocking. So the overclocking is kind of just like, well, that's not relevant anymore. And the memory overclocking side of things, well, A520 does that too. And neither of them supports PCIe 4.0, so that doesn't matter. So A520 boards actually kind of make sense compared to B450 boards at the really low end. So yeah, that's how this ended up here, because it literally has a heatsink. What do you think of the X570 Gaming Plus? That is a board that I haven't looked at in a long time. Let me pull that up. Isn't that garbage? Isn't that one of the boards that's like... Oh yeah, this is one of the boards with the terrible VRM. So, you got 2 M.2 slots. This basically has the same feature set as a B550 board, except with worse power delivery. How much does this cost? I'm going to pull up PC Part Picker. I should just have PC Part Picker pulled up constantly. Motherboard... MSI X570. So Gaming Plus, $160. Get a B550 instead. Seriously, just get a B550 instead. Yeah, or like an X570 Tough Gaming. Because, yeah, there's really nothing that board does that I'm like... The rear I/O is not great. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. I guess it has BIOS flash... there's every B550 motherboard from Gigabyte has BIOS flash pack. BIOS flashback. Ugh. I think you will not read this, but I have. I have a question. I have an Asus X370 Extreme I want to upgrade to Ryzen 5000. it might work. I've seen some people manage to flash B350 boards with Ryzen 5000 support, but it seems to be really dodgy and unofficial. X570-P has the same VRM as TUF, but with a better heatsink. No, X570-P has a worse VRM than the TUF. And less features. And I'll prove that. Like, the X570-P is like the absolute bare minimum of a motherboard. So here's the -P, right? This is a worse VRM, but with a better heatsink. And actually the rear I/O is not as bad as I remember it being. You do only get 6 SATA ports instead of 8, which, you know, if you don't need that, doesn't really make a difference. But this is another board where it's like, this is basically a B550. Like, the thing is, like, we have this real mess with the chipsets because AMD was just delaying B550 for so long. So let's do a comparison between these two. I'm gonna actually pull them out. Oh man, why do they have these horrible websites that don't rescale properly? So that's that. And okay, so this just has like a bunch of extra display outputs compared to... Yeah, that's basically just it, isn't it? Because you've got like 2 USB ports over there. Actually, this seems to have worse rear I/O. Man, I hate how, like... boards are a mess. Motherboards are just a total mess. With, like, the feature sets just go up and down basically randomly. So both of them have 2 M.2 slots. Yeah, I don't know, like, depending on what you're looking for. But at this point, you're also considering, like, B550 boards, in my opinion. What do you think about the Dark Hero? It costs too much. MSI X570 Unify, good, but if you don't need the features, then you should probably get a B550 instead. X570 Unify is good, though. Like, that's, in my opinion, the most sensible X570 motherboard. Because below that, you start getting into the territory of why wouldn't you just get a B550 instead and save even more money. And above that, you get into the territory, do you actually need this? Thanks, Alexander, for the $5. Oh my god. Lay off the super... Actually, well, I'm not going to tell you to stop with the super chats. I have hardware to buy. But, they are distracting if you don't include a message. Will you get Dark Hero over the normal hero? I wouldn't... Wait, are you asking, like, would I buy a Dark Hero instead of a normal hero? Or am I going to buy a Dark Hero? Because I'm going to buy a Dark Hero because I want to mess with it. But that doesn't necessarily mean I think it's a reasonable purchasing decision. I make a lot of unreasonable purchasing decisions. B550 Strix Wi-Fi opinions. Have it works fine with 5600X. Well, yeah, it would work fine with a 5600X. The thing I don't like the B550 Strix F is that you could just get a B550 Aorus Pro instead. Unless I have a promotion for Valhalla with boards ATM. Yeah, I don't consider temporary sales. What about B550 Extreme 4? Literally the same board as a Steel Legend, and at that price point, you can get better memory overclocking support out of Gigabyte, Asus, or MSI motherboards. PCIe 3.0 drives will only lose half speed when adapted to 1X slot. Do they? What do you think about X570 Ace? If you're considering an Ace, buy a Unify. Seriously, the Unify is literally the Ace. It's the same PCB, they just removed one of the LAN ports. That's all they did. Actually, the Aorus Master should be better than the MSI Unify, at least in Germany, where they are evenly priced. Yeah, if the Unify and the Master are at the same price, I would take the Master over the Unify, because the Master kind of has more features, but in the US, the Unify is $50 cheaper. Why exactly are you discussing X570 boards? Wait, You're welcome. What do you think chances of AMD's curve optimizer feature coming to Ryzen 3000 series CPUs? I have no idea. ASRock X570 Taichi. The Taichi is one of the few X570 boards that, in my opinion, kind of makes sense. The only issue is it's an ASRock motherboard. Asus Pro WS X570. That board makes sense if you need, like, what was it? That, I think, is like 10 gig LAN and something else. Yeah, so this board. Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, this has 10 gig LAN, doesn't it? Man, I hate how, like, this is a motherboard product page, and it's like, here's our awards. Instead of telling you about our features, we're going to show you advertising. I mean, the whole point of a product page is to sell more motherboards. Actually, no, it doesn't have 10 gig. It's just dual 1 gig, which is, or is it dual 1 gig? Man, why would you say it's, like, why say the brand and not say the bloody speed? What is wrong with these people? Tech specs. Seriously, motherboard it's almost as bad as memory vendors. Actually, no. Looking for memory kits is even worse. So, you get one and X570 chipset. Oh, this has a U.2 connector. That's kind of neat, I guess, if you want a U.2 drive. Yeah, it has SLI support, but you can get that on a bunch of other X570s. You get dual 1 gig LAN. One of them is Realtek and one of them is Intel. So I guess if you want a U.2 port, this makes sense. Does it have Thunderbolts or something? I guess a lot of people might be interested in the fact that it has that X8 PCIe slot at the bottom, but the thing is that PCIe slot still goes through the chipset, so ultimately that's going to function like an X4. Like that has the same bandwidth as an X4. X570E Strix. Let me just look that one up. The thing is, I'm pretty sure the Unify does everything the X570E does, and the Unify has a postcode. But I might be wrong about that. So, here's the X570 Strix. Tech specs. So does this have 2 M.2 slots or 3? And it does have 2.5. Well, technically the Unify also has 2.5. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is only 2 M.2 slots. Yeah, it says 2x M.2, and they don't have any label on that. So the Unify has more M.2 slots. The Unify has the same configuration of PCIe slots. The Unify has a postcode in an arguably better location. The VRM on this is comparable to the VRM on the Unify, so that doesn't make a difference. I mean, if you hate MSI BIOS, then sure, I guess get the X570E. But I personally prefer MSI's BIOS at this point to literally everyone. So yeah, I'd like, but that's personal preference at that point. But I'm leaning towards MSI. I think their BIOS is like better organized. I use Adobe Suite extensively and also hardcore games. Stressed about getting bored in memory for new build. I know what I want for everything else. Yeah, but like, what does your motherboard need to do if you're using the Adobe Suite? Because I don't use Adobe Suite at all. It's like, I guess you have hard drives, right? Because like your motherboard basically just connects a bunch of stuff, and then it, like, actually that's really all the motherboard does. It connects things, right? So it's like, buy the motherboard with the connectors you need, and then maybe consider like the overclocking capabilities as a side thing, if you want to overclock. Oh man, I am so behind on chat. I am so sorry about that. Talk about Asus X570E, just did that. Yeah, so I'm way behind on chat. Or the chat is behind because of stream delay. I'm not sure. I'm doing build with B550i Auroras, 4650G, and 16 gigs Rev E. Is there any changes you would make if I were min-max for fun overclock? No, that's about as min-maxed as it gets for memory overclocking. What about the new Asus B550XE? So B550XE. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Because I've not looked at it. Okay, so this is the B550XE, which I think I have a price list somewhere for that. Let me just pull that up, because a lot of the new refresh boards, it's like awkward to get prices for them, so let me just... And I'm going off of MSRPs, because the thing is, I don't like going on sale prices, because right now before Christmas, prices are either going to be ridiculous or like deflated, and then they're going to bounce back up or come down even more, and it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to go with what they're supposed to cost, because they're eventually going to reach the price they're supposed to cost, whereas I don't know how long they're going to stay on sale. Alright, they sent me a price list, and I can't see the X5XE in it. Man, that is so stupid. But the B550E was too... Oh my god, Asus made a $300 B550 board. Oh, well, it's Asus. Adding plus $50 to the price tag for no reason is like the default way of doing Asus motherboards. Okay, so what's this supposed to do? So we've got 6 SATA ports, 2 M.2 slots, so same feature set as like a $150, $180 B550 board there. It does have a postcode, which is kind of neat, I guess. But you could also get like... Yeah, the postcode's neat. But the thing is, like, here... I'm so annoyed that the B5... Like, if the Master didn't have dual BIOS, if the Aorus Pro had a postcode, my life would be so much easier. Because, like, that is the two flaws with those two boards. One of them doesn't have a postcode, and the other one doesn't have proper dual BIOS functionality. And if Gigabyte fixed either of those two things, then it would be just like, I wouldn't recommend any other boards anymore. But, yeah, so this literally just has two PCIe two M.2 slots. I'm not getting it. Why is this $300? It has SLI support, but I can get that on a $270 X570 or a $300 X570. Actually, I'm gonna check that it's $300. But like the thing is, like the predecessor, the regular B550E, was already ridiculously expensive. So, okay, the XE's not even on freaking PC part picker yet. So that's a great sign for availability. Oh, it's $255, so it's not as expensive. Oh, well, that's $255 quid. US. Come on, load already. Oh, it's not, like... So you can't even buy this one, so that's great. So that one doesn't exist right now. And I don't have a proper price. Has a Hyper M.2 card included for extra money. So it has a M.2 adapter card. So... The thing is, if this is $300, I'd just get a Unify instead. Or the Tai Chi. Because feature-wise, those are the same. Like, the biggest problem I have with the Tai Chi is, like, ASRock's BIOS. But it's not that bad, and most people don't spend that much time in the BIOS. So... yeah. Oh, I guess also this has 2.5 gig and Wi-Fi 6. Wait a minute. Why don't they have a straight-up photo of the rear I/O? But is that 6 USB ports? That's borderline unusable as far as I'm concerned. Oh, and they have the full 4... Okay, so you can give up all of your PCIe lanes for M.2 drives, I guess. It's like Threadripper use scenario, but the thing is, you could put it in the X8 slot and not only only lose half of your PCIe, which wouldn't be too bad. So that's actually a kind of a neat feature, I guess. Though, actually, you can't really buy a cheaper board and do the same thing, because getting PCIe 4.0 switches is really expensive. So I guess if you want the Hyper M.2 card, this kind of makes sense. I guess. Depends on what you're doing. Why Gigabyte don't listen to your advice? No, the thing is, Gigabyte doesn't ask. Like, the B550 Master, if they told me that they weren't going to put the switches on the B550 Master before they sent me one, I would have told them. But they sent me one, and I was like, wait a minute. There's no dual BIOS switches, and it's like, yeah, too late. This is how we're producing them. It's like, oh my god, guys, how could you do this? It's like, if they told me several months in advance what they're working on, then, you know, I'd have some feedback. But when it's like, oh yeah, we're launching, here's a new board. And I'm like, did you seriously forget to do this? And it's like, well, yeah, we did. Can you MSI B550 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi? I think we already looked at that one. But we can look at it again. I think the main, like, the thing is, I'm pretty sure the Gaming Edge Wi-Fi is, like, the... Like, this is, yeah, so this is like the Gaming Plus, I think? No, A Pro. Yeah, it's like the A Pro, but with Wi-Fi. So, let me pull up the other board that I just mentioned. So, that board, I think these are like the same thing. I'm not 100% certain on that, though. How do I get to the gallery now? Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the same power delivery on both of them. They have the same PCB cut in. There's a cap missing in the audio section? Oh no, okay, no, they are on different PCBs, so I guess this might have a slightly different VRM. Well, if you need the Wi-Fi, this is actually, like, sure. How much does it cost, though? The thing is, like, I don't have the prices all memorized, unfortunately. I'm not that good. Plus, no, that's Edge. Oh, so that's 150. Oh, right, wait, no, that's on sale, isn't it? So if we look here, I'm pretty sure that's on sale. Yeah, that's way on sale. So that's like a $180 board. So right now, for that price, yeah, that's actually great. But when it comes back to its actual price, then if you don't need the Wi-Fi, I would get an Aorus Pro or an X570 Tough or a B550 Tough or like... And actually, even, like, I would actually just go for the Gigabyte board out of those three. Yeah, it really depends. So, you missed my previous super chat. Well, let's see if I can scroll all the way back to it. Where's Pro... Oh. Man, I'm really annoyed that the super chats decay. Is there a way to turn that off? Because, like, on this stream, I'm just not going to keep up with them. Thoughts on Crosshair 8 Hero at 359, pairing it with a 5600X, 3080 FE, love the rear IO and 8 SATA ports. Will be OCing. So the thing is, as far as I know, the main one of the big differences between the Crosshair 8 Hero, the Dark Hero, and the original Hero is that Asus fixed the memory upgraded the memory topology. It's not so much fixing it. They've upgraded it. And so the memory overclock, like, I think they're still using the original Crosshair 8 Hero topology on the current Crosshair 8 Hero. And so you're not gonna, like, if you're only going up to, like, 4,000, it shouldn't really affect you. But If you want to go really fast, then you're probably going to have a bit of a problem. And I just want to check something. So I'm just going to pull up that board. Okay, so that's this one. Man, I really hope Firefox doesn't up and die on me. This is a really bad way of doing things. It's just like pulling up window after window after window. It's like, well, this is what I have 32 gigs of RAM for, I guess. Because the most direct comparison I can see for that board is this right here. Because they are both around $350, at least in the US, and we should actually be looking at the Rev 2. Okay, so Gigabyte's website really doesn't like being rescaled. That's great. I love that. Yeah, that is just better. Like, this does just have more USB ports. So... Also, the chat doesn't load if I have it, like, scrolled up for too long. Pulling 860 from the wall on a 850 watt power supply, that's fine. It's a problem if you're outputting 850. Pulling more than 850 in is, like, just normal for 850 watt power supplies, if you're running them close to maxed out. Someone buy this... Wait, why would you buy me a USB hub? No, USB hubs make a mess. That's like the whole reason you don't want USB hubs. So yeah, between these two, that's a really hard decision to make, in my opinion. Like, this has more M.2 slots. This also has dual BIOS. But if you don't care about that, then yeah, this is also going to probably be better at memory overclocking than a Hero. But 8 SATA ports. Yeah, if you want the 8 SATA ports, then the M.2s, I guess, really don't matter to you. Because the thing is, you can't even use that many M.2s at the same time as the SATA ports, because they share bandwidth. So, yeah, I'm not like, hey, if you want 8 SATA ports, and you want to do, and you don't want to buy an ASRock motherboard, which I can sympathize with, yeah, the Hero still makes sense. That still makes sense, in my opinion. B550 iStrix. B550 iStrix is just overpriced, in my opinion. Especially, like, if the B550 iStrix was an X570 Strix with the B550 chipset, I'd be all over it. But what they actually did is they redesigned the VRM to be worse. Which is like, ITX boards are already kind of like borderline in terms of cooling if you're going to be overclock. Like, well, if you don't overclock, then the B550 iStrix is fine, but then it's like, if you don't overclock, you could also get like a B550i from Gigabyte, which is significantly cheaper. So, like, I'm guessing you're asking about the B550 iStrix for features then. B550 LE V2 AX VRM heatsink worse than the MSI B550 Edge Wi-Fi? Does it matter? Like, what are you going to do with them? Because I'm pretty sure either of those boards is going to be completely fine with 5950X. ASRock Asus all day. Absolutely not. ASRock is not better than Asus. I went with B550 Master and don't regret it. You obviously haven't done enough. If you don't hate the dual BIOS functionality of the B550 Master, you just haven't done enough overclocking. That's all there is to that. Stig Eric, Buildzoid is my best friend. He admitted it on the last stream, so now you're official. No, sure, go. Like, yep, sure, go ahead. Why has the B550 Taichi higher mem overclocking speeds than the X570 Taichi? Because, so, funny story. Every time motherboard vendors get a chance to design a new PCB, they redesign the memory port, like they upgrade the memory overclocking, or they try to upgrade the memory overclocking capabilities. The side effect of that is that a lot of X570 motherboards now have an outdated memory topology compared to their B550 counterparts. So B5, and like the only motherboard vendor where this doesn't apply is Gigabyte, because Gigabyte has basically gone and like updated their memory topology on all of their X570 boards to be on par with what they have on their B550 boards. For everybody else, if they didn't release a new model, they didn't do anything to the design. Buildzoid join button when? Probably never. Holy shit. Check out B550 Vision D. I like the B550 Vision D. I really do. It's a cool board. But it's also kind of a... like, it's $250-ish dollars. So here's the B550 Vision D. And it's like things I like about this board. You get a postcode. You get a you get Q-Flash. You get, oh, right. So this is the only Gigabyte page that has a gallery, which is like, not only are the websites, like, annoying to navigate, they're not even bloody consistent. Anyway, so yeah, this rear I/O is beast. That's dual 1 gig though, and you do get Thunderbolt 3. They don't call it Thunderbolt 3, but it does use a Thunderbolt 3 chipset on the motherboard. And you also get Wi-Fi 6. So like the rear I/O on this thing is really cool. It supports SLI, so you have 2 X8 PCIe slots, which can be very useful. You get 2 M.2 slots, which is normal for B550. You have a postcode. Awesome. You don't have dual BIOS, so you don't have the annoying thing that the Master does. And as far as I know, this is on the exact same memory topology as the B550 Master, so the memory overclocking is going to be the same. My personal biggest problem with this board is it has 4 SATA ports. Yeah, so for me, personally, the 4 SATA ports are like, oh no. But other than that, it's like, yeah, this is a really, really cool board. This is, like, I'm a big fan of this board. Well, I'm not a fan of the VRM heatsink, but that shouldn't really be an issue. Like, unless you're on a 5950X, and actually, even with the 5950X, unless you're in a completely airflow-starved environment, this should be just fine. Because the VRM itself is actually good. Wait, did I miss another super chat? I did miss another super chat, and it was 20 bucks. Okay, so, hey Buildzoid, love the rants, make me laugh. I feel you on that Gigabyte overclocking frustration. Started trying to overclock my 4x16 3200 CL14, and it never took. Oh, no, that's not Gigabyte's fault. That's your fault for running 64 gigs of B-die. No, Gigabyte's the Gigabyte dual BIOS experience is when the the motherboard randomly switches between the BIOS chips, so that you lose all of your settings and all of your profiles every time it does that. And the only way to go back is to cut AC power, which is super frustrating to deal with. Running 4x16 Samsung B-die is just generally a terrible experience because you're trying to overclock 4x16 Samsung B-die. You should not do that. That's a bad decision. Also, I'm guessing you have an early revision X570 Master, and that one's going to have a weaker memory topology than the later revisions. But yeah, 64 gigs of Samsung B-die just sucks to overclock. If I was getting 64 gigs, I would go for either 2x32. Actually, no, just 2x32. Or you could go 4x16 with single Rancraft B sticks if you can find those. Like, 4x16, I would avoid B-die, because B-die is such a, like, by 4x8, B-die is already kind of difficult to run. Once you hit 2x16, it's incredibly difficult to run. If the Vision D came in blackout, then I'd consider it. That's another advantage I have. I don't care about colors, about the motherboard color too much. Did I miss any other super chats? Does the X570 Taichi SATA ports share bandwidth with the M.2 slots? As far as I know, yes, because the X570 chipset doesn't have enough PCIe slots for, doesn't have enough PCIe lines for that. Dual BIOS on X570, dual BIOS on Gigabyte X470 Ultra Gaming was crap. Always randomly switched. Yes, this guy knows what I'm talking about when I'm complaining about the Gigabyte dual BIOS experience. It's like, oh, I'm just going to do some memory overclocking. Then it fails to post 3 times, and now you're on a different BIOS chip. Crosshair Dark Hero has better memory topology than regular Hero. As far as I know, yes. Asus won't confirm it, but as far as I know, yes. 2x16 B-die. 2x16 B-die is fine. 4x16 is not fine. You missed the super chat earlier about the X570 Tough Pro. Oh, should I just look at the X570 Tough Pro? We can do that. We can totally do that. I'm very sorry if I miss your super chat. So X570 Tough Pro. This was an interesting board because I got really excited about it, and then I saw the $220 price tag, and then I was like, oh, well, like that you lost me, Asus. Because this kind of fixes a lot of the complaints I'd have. Well, no, I'm still not a fan of the rear I/O on this, but right. But you do get Wi-Fi 6, I believe, 2.5 gig LAN, BIOS flashback, which the regular Tough doesn't have. New VRM heatsinks, which the previous VRM was fine, so it's like that doesn't really matter. But the thing is, you still only get two M.2 slots. You do get an internal Type-C, but that's like B550 boards do the two M.2 slots thing. They do the Type-C thing. They don't do the 8 SATA ports. They don't do that. But like that's the thing is just like in a lot of ways, this is just a B550 board. Right? Like that's the problem I have with it is just like other than the 8 SATA ports, this is very much a B550 motherboard. So, yeah. Do you want a 2400G? I botched. Dealer did knock the cap off. Oh, I might be able to fix that. If I can source a new capacitor for it. But hey, I might be able to fix that. So yeah, I am interested. Send me. Can I direct message people? No. Just send me any kind of fan mail thing, buildzoid@gmail.com. There. Any kind of fan mail stuff, send it there. Don't send me questions, because I'll probably not respond to them, unless they're interesting. And if you think if your question is something like basic Googling could solve, then don't send it to me. Hi, BZ. I'm having a memory Infinity Fabric overclocking 5950X on X570 formula. Won't even do 1900. BIOS AGSA issue. Yeah, it should be a BIOS AG. That should be an AGSA issue. Also, the formula, as far as I know, the X5, like, I've heard that the Asus X570 boards aren't the best at Infinity Fabric. Like, the early X570 Asus boards aren't the best at Infinity Fabric, but I never had a chance to confirm that. Because, like, my X570 iStrix was completely fine, but that also has a two-phase SoC VRM, if I'm not mistaken. And the formula might be a single-phase SoC. Which, like, that shouldn't be an issue, unless they really screwed something up, but I don't know. Dude, it wasn't just switching BIOS when I was seeing it was also just random reboots. Oh, man, I've not run into it doing it randomly on reboots. I've only run into it when, like, pushing settings. Why don't you mention the boards that have Thunderbolt headers, but always mention boards with built-in Thunderbolt? Gigabyte and Asus almost all have headers now. Because there's a lot of boards with that built in. Also, don't you lose a PCIe slot for a Thunderbolt card? Which is like, I really would prefer not... Well, I guess that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? But... So why don't I mention that? Because it's just not something I've thought about. Like, the thing is, I can't think of everything, right? Like, it was, for me, motherboards is like, does it overclock memory well? Does it have dual BIOS? Is it frustrating to work with? Like, is it good at overclocking? Is it frustrating to work with? Does it have enough USB ports? Does it have enough SATA ports? Everything outside of that, I really couldn't care less. And so it's really hard for me doing these roundup videos because I realize I'm really not, like I'm really out of touch with what most people probably look for in their motherboards. Love your videos here since 10k subs. Curious, do PCB VRM analysis on AliExpress boards. I think I actually have a PCB pictures from Gamers Nexus for one of those lying around somewhere. So, yeah. Do you think they improved Taichi in the new Razer Edition Taichi, or just same board with Razer branding? Probably the same board with Razer branding. Without being able to test it, I wouldn't know. I don't have a way of, like, asking ASRock if they changed anything. Postcode is freaking awesome. Yes, it is. It's funny he don't reply. It's funny he don't reply to nothing that's not paid for. I'm barely keeping up with the people that are sending me money. So it's like, you know, like, how would I be keeping up with the people who aren't sending money? On the Master, slide the single BIOS switch. Yes, I know! On the X570 Master, you have the BIOS switch to set the board into single BIOS mode. The B550 version doesn't have that, which is incredibly stupid. That's the thing I was complaining about. The X570 Master is a great motherboard, except for the part where the Unify exists. And basically does everything the Master does and does it like $50 cheaper. This is the other thing I really hate about doing roundup videos, is because I've seen it. If I say a motherboard has support for X8 PCIe slots or X8, X4, X4, there's going to be some guy who thinks the motherboard can't run X16 on the primary slot. And it's just like, oh. Like, you can't imply any kind of functionality to these people. X570 Tomahawk, we've looked at that. We've looked at the X570 Tomahawk. It basically has the same feature set as a B550 board, but costs more. Upset Buildzoid scares me. Oh, I'm not upset yet. This wouldn't be... This is like... yeah, I wouldn't consider myself currently upset right now. I might sound like it, because I have a bad habit of just laying into my vocal cords. How bad is 128 gigs, 2 quad kits 4x16 CJR 3970X? I have no idea how that would behave. CJR shouldn't be as difficult to run as BDI, so I would assume that, like, 3600 shouldn't be too much of a problem. CL17 isn't gonna work, though. It's gonna run at CL18. Is FX6300 good? It's great for doing 8 gigahertz, like for attempting an 8 gigahertz validation. Yeah, FX6300 is great for that. For anything else, it's kind of useless. Have any tips for overclocking 4x8 Patriot Viper 4000 CL19? Assuming they're Samsung BDI, they should behave exactly the same as my 4400 CL19 sticks. Or at least very similarly to my 4400 CL19 sticks. Would you ever consider a more permanent position at Gamers Nexus or Linus Tech Tips? No, because I'd get fired for not showing up to work. Seriously, I have, like, compared to Steve is like an absolute machine when it comes to actually getting stuff done. I'm the opposite of getting stuff done. B550 Unify not releasing this month. Yeah, I've noticed. Like, I was told it was supposed to be end of December, end of November, early December, and yeah, it's still nowhere to be seen. Wait, can I get BDI 3200 CL14 to OC to 4000 CL16? Hell yeah. Should be no problem. Actually, speaking of that, I'm going to be getting a 3200 CL14 kit very soon from G.Skill, and I'm going to do a video about overclocking that. Overclocked 5900X plus RTX 3080, 2x M.2 drives, absolutely no needs other than that, but highly keen on CPU and RAM OC, X570E or B550 AORS Pro. Are the M.2 drives PCIe 4.0? Because that's like the other thing, is like, well... Like, I don't know how much people care about M.2 PCIe 4.0 drives. Like, there was a video by Linus Tech Tips where they did, like, blind tests of PCI, like, M.2 versus SATA versus PCIe 4.0 M.2 SSDs. And, like, they barely could tell the difference between the SSDs. So based on that, I don't really put much weight on PCIe 4.0 SSDs. And it's like, get B550 in that case. You said 64 gigs you'd prefer 2x32 over 4x16. What's your favorite 32 gig DIMM setup? Crucial 36, like the 3600, 16, 18, 18, 32 gig DIMMs from Crucial, really good. Those are really, really solid. And everything rated above that is really good, but they're also kind of expensive. Because that's actually when you get to like the kind of hard bin, the 3200, 16, 18, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to do low TRCD once you hit 3800. There's not that much of a performance difference. F4 3200 CL14. I'm getting a G.Skill Ripjaws 5 3200 CL14 2x8. I just wanted like the cheapest 3200 CL14 BDI kit G.Skill makes, because I really like, because a lot of people, you know, always ask is like, can these actually overclock to crazy speeds? And it's like, yes they can. And so I'm going to do a video where we take a 3200 CL14 kit and I'll probably be able to do 4800 CL16 with it. So that's kind of what I'm planning to do. It should be like a 30, like it might even take me only 30 minutes to go from, you know, XMP 3214 to 4816. That's like best ideal scenario is that I managed to do that. Drinking game involving, see, here's the thing. You're gonna die if you try to do that. Sending money while asking a question is the least I can do since, things I would pay for to know. Some things are really hard to find on Google. Some things are, Yeah, I get the feeling Google's been getting less helpful recently. Thanks, Vissel, for the... I have no idea what that is, but that looks like a big number. Thoughts on VRM cooling when using a water block? No airflow from CPU coolers. It's something to consider when looking at boards. Depends on what CPU you're running. If you're running like a 6-core or an 8-core, and your motherboard has at least like 1250 amp power stages, it doesn't matter. If you're running a 16-core or a 12-core, and you have 1250 amp power stages, it still mostly doesn't matter, but really depends on also your, like, then it starts mattering, like your ambient temperature starts playing a pretty significant role. So that can be a bit annoying. I run a set of Corsair Dominator RGB Platinum CL16 3200 2x16 kit. Yeah, well, if you're running a 3200 CL16, you're fine. Does Asus B550XE have chipset fan? No, it doesn't. It's a B550 board. You should make a custom heatsinks for bad boards or something. It would be cool to AHOC branded heatsinks. The thing is, like, here's the thing. If you wanted to actually, like, if the heatsinks were meant to actually be somewhat profitable for me, then they would cost so much that you could just buy a better motherboard instead. Right? Like, that's the whole issue with, like, aftermarket motherboard heatsinks is just like, if you spend the price difference of a better motherboard in heatsinks, you've just like totally missed the point. No politics, guys. Here's some cash to buy new hardware. At this rate, I'm going to be able to buy a Crosshair Dark Hero. Is it likely to expect BDI 3616 to OC to 3800 C14, board Crosshair Hero? I don't think it's going to be... 3800 C15 would be very easy. 3814 tends to be kind of more difficult. Like, not all sticks can do 3814 at 1.5 volts, but if you're willing to run more voltage and you have the cooling for more voltage, then 3800 CL14 is no problem. Thanks, Likai Liu, for the Australian $5. YT party tonight. I currently have 2x16 BDI 3200 CL14, OC to 3800 CL16 with Ryzen 3900X on X570 Master. I could push to 4000 megahertz realistically. The issue with the if you're on a 3900X, there's no point going up to 4000 because your Infinity Fabric's not going to keep up and you're going to lose performance. Have your thoughts on the Crosshair 8 impact changed since the initial PCB breakdown now that the B550 boards are here? Yeah, they have changed, because as far as I know, Asus actually, like, the B550 ITX Strix from Asus is actually a better memory overclocker than the Crosshair Impact. And like, I think the Dark Hero is also a better memory overclocker than the Impact, because the Impact is like a really early X5, like, because that's the thing is, like, a lot of the B550 boards have a new memory topology that's better than the old X570 topologies, like the early X570 topologies. And so now you have like 4-DIMM motherboards that are outperforming the 2-dimmers. But I've not had a chance. Like, ideally, I'd want to see a test of a Crosshair Impact against a Dark Hero. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being tied with the Hero or losing to it. Because, like, the new memory topologies are just so strong. Don't know the answer to this. I have X570 Tough, 2 terabyte NVMe drives. More if you'd have 2 GPUs. But I'm not... Wait, what's the... Like, that question doesn't make any sense. Any expectations for the Team Group DDR5 16 gig 40 scheduled to release Q3 2020? I've not looked at anything DDR5. Hey, do you have some experience with 4750G plus the dual rank B die 2x1632 on a 2-dim MOBO? What can I expect? You should be able to do at least 4,000 if the sticks are good. And like the thing is, I don't know if more than 4,000 is possible because I've not tried that yet. But 4,000 should be easy. I have 4x Hynix C die, 3600 CL18 cheap on X570 tough with 5900X. How far can I go with its OC? Should I focus on speed or latency? You can probably go to like 37. You can probably do 3800 at this like 3800 at like 16, 19, 19 should be possible. Maybe 3800, 16, 20, 20. Do you know if any thermoelectric coolers are coming for AM4? No, and I like the Intel thermoelectric cooler in my opinion is a stupid gimmick. It's a fun gimmick, but a stupid gimmick. Thank you for all the rambles. You've been educational and entertaining. Well, thanks for the 5 Canadian, I guess. PCB breakdown of B550XE. Not happening because I don't have pictures. And Asus, like, I can't ask Asus to send any. R7 5800 or 5600. Do you know why you want a 5800? Because if you don't know why you want a 5800, I think you should probably get a 5600 instead, unless your GPU is already like a 3080. Crucial Ballistics RGB Red Dim Kit, 2x16, 3200 CL16. How good can it OC? X299 Asus. Don't run 2x16 on X299. On X29, actually, wait, do you have a 7740X or something? Because on X299, you really, really want to be you want to run 4x8 on X299. Because you really want to be running quad channel, because your memory bandwidth gets literally cut in half. And if I'm not mistaken, the way the memory controller is laid out, some cores have more latency to one side of the one memory controller than the other. So you really want to have both memory channels working. Oh, no, it's 4x16. Well, okay, so 4x16 good, but I don't know how it's going to overclock. I have no idea. I've never tried, I've not tried that. But you should be able to maybe do 3600. Actually, 3600 should be relatively easy. And past that, I have no idea. B550 ASRock Velocity. Does the VRM heat pipe connect? Both heat sinks make a difference. The Steel Legend has the same heat sink, but no heat pipe. Well, the Steel Legend already can run a 16 core, so I don't know why you care. Like, the Steel Legend is already capable of overclocking a 16 core, so I don't really see much point in spending extra. Unless there's some features that the, what's it called? Velocity has that the Steel Legend doesn't. And I think it's the Velocita, not Velocity, but whatever. Actually, I think the heatsinks on... Actually, yeah, this does... No, this doesn't... Is that the same heatsink? That doesn't look like the same heatsink. Not on the SoC. Oh, no, it is the same. Or similar. Oh, come on, Windows. No! Cooperate! There we go. I guess visually it's a more appealing motherboard. And you get the buttons, but if you're not using it on the test bench, the buttons don't really do anything. I guess the VRM on this might run a little bit cooler, because if I'm not mistaken, that top heatsink does actually end up sitting at a lower temperature than the one under the I/O cover. But it's not like a massive, it's not a significant difference, in my opinion. So, X570 MOBO for 5900X stock or small OC. Why do you need X570? Why wouldn't you just get a B550 instead? Is the ROG Crosshair 8 Hero T2... It's daisy chain. The vast majority of X570 motherboards are daisy chain. Which board would you choose for 5950X and G-Skill 4260 L19? B550 Aorus Pro. Seriously, like, unless you tell me that you need, like, SATA ports or USB ports or M.2 slots, I am going to go for a B550 board every single time because they have the same VRMs as a bunch of the X570 boards, and they're cheaper. And a lot of them have better memory topologies. MSI B550 Carbon. I've not looked at that. I've kind of forgotten it exists. Yeah, let's take a look. Oh, man. It's super, like, I don't know why Windows has this, like, snapping thing when you try to go from one monitor to another monitor. Like, it gets stuck. Yeah, it gets stuck here. This is so annoying. And there's no way to turn it off without turning off the, like, the Windows shortcuts for, like, snapping windows around. At least as far as I'm aware. Oh, this is actually pretty good. I like this. How much is this? Oh, I remember why I don't like this board. This thing's $220, isn't it? This thing's $220. I bet it's $220. Which is too much. Like, B550 motherboard for $220? Are you kidding me? B550 Carbon. Oh, right now it's on a... Looks like it's on sale. No, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. So, let's see. So yeah, this is a $220 board that's currently on sale for $189 and then has a $10 mail-in rebate. Same at Newegg. So I don't know if this is the new price, then yeah, this is totally reasonable. At $190, this is totally reasonable. At $220, it's not reasonable at all. And this is the other issue is just like if the motherboards actually had like a set price, you know, it would be a much simpler. B550 Aorus Master. If the dual BIOS wasn't absolutely infuriating on the B550 Aorus Master, I would recommend that in a heartbeat. But the dual BIOS on that board is absolutely infuriating. To the point that, like, if you really want a master board, I would only get the X570 one. My reaction when VZ is so popular, I need to repeat my question 3 times. How do I bin dual rank VDI so I can decide what kit of Trident Z to sell? The same as you would bin single rank. Just, like, come up with a set of settings that you want to run and see which kit runs it at the lowest voltage or, like, which kit clocks the highest. Like, you can either test for, like, max settings at 2 volts, or you can test for, like, minimum voltage at 4000 CL14 or something. Really depends on what you want to, like, which way you want to which direction you want to take it in. B550A Pro. I'm a big fan of the B550A Pro because it's $140. It does basically everything you would need from your basic motherboard. So I'm a fan of that board. Like, that straight up made it into the list. We're not going to go into the list for that. So far, I'm not really getting... Like I feel like currently, like, even though I called this a discussion, this has basically turned into Buildzoid talking down to people motherboards decisions. It's like, so I'm not I don't feel like I've made progress to understand what other people look for in motherboards. I've just come to the conclusion people have no idea what they're buying when they're buying motherboards. Like, people have no idea how to choose motherboards is basically the conclusion I've come to so far. And they buy motherboards that cost way too much. For no reason. Can we just get 3 Buildzoids for under 200? Wait, what? You want to clone me for 200 bucks? Or, like, I don't get that. B550 Aorus, I like it. I've done a PCB breakdown of the B550 Aorus for Gamers Nexus ages ago. Like, it's my favorite ITX B550 board because it's the cheapest ITX B5... Well, actually, it's not the cheapest B550 ITX board, but the next motherboard option for cheap ITX B550s is this thing. The funny thing is, the only good reason for this to have the B550 chipset is that it has a PCIe 4.0 well, that's super bugged out, isn't it? But the PCIe slot on this is 4.0. Whereas, because, like, you shouldn't overclock on this VRM heatsink. Like, you just don't overclock on that. Please don't. So if you can't overclock, right, there's basically no difference between this, and this is $100 cheaper, except this is only PCIe 3.0, whereas this is PCIe 4.0. So if you need the 4.0, yeah, this has an advantage, but overclocking-wise, this is basically an A520 board. This, on the other hand, is like, yeah, I would totally overclock on this. The only concern is, like, depends on the airflow, kinda. How did this get here? Let's get that out of there. Anyway, and this is like my favorite ITX board. The only issue is I don't think Asus ever updated the memory topology, so this is a better memory overclocker. But the VRM on this is great. This is the same VRM as the Impact. So it's like if you want to overclock a 16-core on an ITX motherboard, this right here is what I would go for. Unfortunately, it also goes for $250 to $300 right now. And I think Asus is trying to get rid of it and replace it with the B550 ITX. But the B550 ITX has a significantly worse VRM, which is just like, why would you do this? What's wrong with you? Also, the ITX B550 board is $230, so it's $20 cheaper than this one, at least at MSRP. Like, this is $250 by MSRP. So that one's like $20 cheaper by MSRP, and it has a massive VRM downgrade. And it's just like, why? Oh man, I just missed a bunch of chat messages again. Tell me best motherboard for gaming which support Ryzen 3600. This. No, wait, this. This supports a Ryzen 3600. If you don't overclock, it's just fine. Does PCB VRM quality affect reliability lifespan of boards GPUs? Yes, but it depends on the operating conditions. Right? Like, 980 Ti's like to die after, like, 5 years of runtime, usually by blowing up their own vCore VRM, because that vCore VRM is kind of inadequate for powering a GPU that power-hungry. But if you had that exact same VRM powering, like, a GTX 960, it would last basically forever. So it's like, basically, depending on what CPU you're running, like, if you have a really... Because consider, like, office systems, right? Which have basically no VRM, and they're fine. For years and years and years, they're completely fine. You don't have the VRM explode, because nobody actually uses them at full power, and the CPUs in them are, like, i3s with 2 cores that can't pull any power even if you ran Prime 95. Can you talk... can't talk down to me. I have an X570 Tai Chi. X470 Ultra Gaming was crap. Everything is an upgrade from it. Yeah, no, I think your purchasing decision is reasonable. Everybody else is, like, trying to buy freaking X570 boards so that they can plug in one GPU and an M.2 drive, and I'm like, why? Why does the Crosshair 8 Impact cost so much? Because it's an Asus ROG board, and that's why it costs so much. 2.5 gig Intel or Realtek. So as far as I know, the 2.5 gig Intel had some massive, like, reliability issues due to a hardware flaw, and it might have been fixed at this point. But I don't know for sure. And I've also heard about Realtek 2.5 gig LAN having, like, long-term, like, dropping out after extended on time. So it basically sounds like 2.5 gig LAN is just generally unreliable, but I don't test networking controllers. So it's like, somebody else should test that stuff. It's like, I want to do overclocking. Like, I'm annoyed enough as it is that I have to consider things like M.2 slots. Now that people have successfully boot 5000 CPU in A320 and X370, do you think it's reasonable for AMD to bar 5000 series on 300 series boards? Wait, what? Like, add support for 5000 series on 300 series, or AMD blocking support for 5000 series on 300 series? Because I think AMD just doesn't want to bother. MSI X570 Gaming Plus for 5900X. No! Don't buy no. X570 Gaming Plus is terrible. Seriously. Especially for a 5900X. I mean, if you're running it at stock, it's not going to matter very much. But it's not a good motherboard. It costs the same money as good B550 boards, and it doesn't do anything that those B550 boards don't do. Like, the X570 chipset. So consider this. This whole thing is a motherboard. The chipset is... Actually, this is terrible. We need a different picture. Where are we? There we are. X570. Wait, who's... Oh, no, that's not my folder. That's the Gamers Nexus folder. That's why there's less motherboards in there. Huh. Oh, no, that doesn't work. I don't... Oh, right, because I'm so lazy I don't pull off the chipset heatsink. Oh, boy. Okay, well, I give up. But point is, so this whole thing is a motherboard. The chipset is a little square hiding under the heatsink down here. Everything else on the motherboard is basically, well, actually that's not entirely true, but the only things the chipset affects is like, how many SATA ports do you have, how many M.2 slots do you have, and how many PCIe lanes you have. Okay? That's it. That's all the chipset does. It doesn't affect overclocking. It doesn't affect memory overclocking. It doesn't affect what CPUs are compatible. It doesn't affect how many GPUs you can run. Well, it kind of can, but not really. Hey, sorry if I missed this, just tuned in. What would you say the best X570 motherboard is if money is not an issue? Would my B550 have any issue running my M.2 Gen 4 boot drive, Gen 3 second slot, and a SATA SSD? No, that's fine. Like, that's literally what B550 is designed to do. As for the X570 motherboard with no price limit, like, it still depends what you want to do. Right? Like, if you want to mess around with overclocking, I think the Dark Hero actually makes sense. If you're legit looking for, I want to mess with overclocking motherboard, Dark Hero makes a lot of sense. Because it kind of has, like, the coolest, newest gimmick for overclocking on the entire AM4 platform. But in terms of features, it's not the best, right? Like, if you want 10 gig LAN and Thunderbolt, this exists for 500. If you want a weird PCIe slot layout, this exists, though you're going to get this disaster of a rear I.O. And if you want, I don't know, 3 M.2 slots, 10 gig LAN, this exists also. Like, that's the issue, is just like, money is no object, but it's like, still, what do you want to do? Because unfortunately, we don't have one motherboard that does literally everything. This is about as close as it gets to doing almost everything. But it's not literally everything. And I do believe this does have a Thunderbolt 3 header, but it's like this board actually has the Thunderbolt 3 built in. So I don't know, like, which one do you prefer? I bought an X570 tough Wi-Fi based on your cheap X570 video. Other than that, I'm a pleb and know nothing. Yeah, this is fine. Like, look, if you're buying the cheapest X5, I'm assuming you bought that before B550 was available, right? Because if you bought that before B550 was a thing, that's a perfectly reasonable purchasing decision. If you bought that after B550 launched, then not that great a purchasing decision. B550 Mortar Wi-Fi any good? It's a good motherboard, I just don't like the rear I.O. Like, there's other M.A.T.X boards that, in my opinion, are like better featured. So let's prove that, shall we? Also, I know why I keep getting questions about the Gaming Plus. It's because MSI put it on a really deep discount. It's currently one of the cheapest X570 boards. It's trash, though. Okay, it's trash. Get a B550 instead. So, yeah, I'm basically not a fan of this right here. But, other than that, like, because the other M.A.T.X boards you have, like, you have this here, which this is just a better rear I.O. You still get Wi-Fi 6 and 2.5 gig, though I think this is Intel 2.5 gig, so that might be less reliable than the Realtek 2.5 gig. The VRM on this is comparable to the VRM on this. And funnily enough, Gigabyte, the Pro P, actually has a VRM that's also comparable to the VRM on this and this. Though actually, I think this might be the strongest VRM. Oh, and it does have troubleshooting LEDs, but the TUF also has troubleshooting LEDs. And this is my favorite rear I.O. for M.A.T.X board. It's just like more USB ports. This doesn't have Wi-Fi, which you can get, like, if you need Wi-Fi, then yeah, the Mortar or the TUF are the options. This also doesn't have troubleshooting LEDs, but this is $120. So, This is like 120, well, 120 to 130. But, yeah, alternatively, there's the Steel Legend, but I think the VRM on that is actually significantly worse. This does have an internal Type-C, which I think the Gigabyte board... Oh, the Gigabyte board doesn't have that. So, like, it depends for, like, what you're looking for. It's not a bad board. It's just, like... There's, like, for B550 and X570 in general... There's not a lot of, like, actually terrible motherboards. But there is a lot of motherboards where it's like you can very easily spend more money than you need to. Then again, I guess, you know, like this board's like 160 and this is 130 or 120, which is like $40, and it's like, does that, well, you might be able to get a GPU with a better heatsink, which would make your system quieter, or you might be able to get a better memory kit, or maybe a CPU cooler or something. Right? Like that's the other thing. It's just like the motherboards don't exist in a void. I wouldn't trade say GPU performance for a motherboard, right? Like in a gaming system, I would not trade GPU performance for my motherboard. I would rather have an A520 board than lose GPU performance. So G-Skill Ripjaws, SK Hynix 2x16 3600, XMP seems to crash PC under load, stable at 2133. Should I give up and find some B-die? No, because currently this... Are you on the latest BIOSes? Because as far as I'm aware, currently there's a bit of a... The BIOSes are kind of broken for memory support right now. So it's like, if you're on a really new BIOS, that might be part of it. Also, why do I keep getting your YouTube not... How is it not receiving enough video? Are they detecting if the image is moving? I guess they're, like, checking for image movement. Because, like, freaking OBS is telling me I'm streaming all the bits I could be streaming. Or at least all the bits I set it to stream. Hey, BZ, just wondering, should I use 1 or 2 separate 8-pins for my daily GPU? Can it even pull that much power? What GPU is in your daily? If it's a 3080, you should probably use 2 8-pins. If it's like 2 separate 8-pins. How is ASRock Steel Legion? Which board? Which steel... Also, what's a Steel Legion? I'm not aware of one. Also, we are not going to open that there. They don't have a Steel Legion. They have a Steel Legend. And there's a B450 Steel Legend, which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. There's the B550 Steel Legend, which is actually pretty good. And there's the X570 Steel Legend, which is overpriced. So, you know, like, what are you looking for? 5700 XT. You probably want to plug in 2 8-pins into that separately. So what's the difference between the Pro and the Pro P B550M boards? The Pro P is just better. Literally, it's just better. Don't get the regular Pro. Like, Gigabyte refreshed a bunch of their B550... Well, no, this is... Like, it's actually really surprising that this one... Like, this one's just a straight upgrade over its predecessor. So, this one's just better. You've missed my super chat twice. $17 so far. And you sent another one and didn't send what you wanted to say. So now you've spent $17 and I still don't know what you wanted to ask me. Like, just ask in the chat right now. JC Pocket. Did you already talk about the ITX boards? A little bit. B550 Gaming Carbon, any good? With the current price of the B550 Gaming Carbon, it's fine. With the MSRP, it's not, because it's supposed to be $220. I only paid at $140 USD for my X570 Tough Gaming Plus. That's a really good deal. Did I manage to miss the guy with the super chat again, or did he just not send a message? I have to have a ton of delay. Is there some way I can change that? Did I miss that guy again? Oh my god. Okay, wait. See, so Dark Hero, 5950X, 4x16 DR Royals. Should I push more? I know you have said it's bad, but I don't know, so... I mean, you can still try to push it further. It's just, like, if it doesn't go any further, it's because you're running 4x16 B-die. Also, are those Royals 16, 16, 16, or are they 16, 19? Because 16, 19 will actually probably have some decent headroom. 16, 16 won't. Can you go... Oh my god, and the chat skipped again. Can you go over what the new updated changes to the memory layout are? This is new to me. Basically, new motherboards overclock memory better. Like, I don't actually know what they changed in the topology itself. It's just like, if you take if you take my X570 Extreme, well, actually, with the X570 Extreme, it's really obvious. So on the original version of the X570 Extreme, you can actually see the memory traces. On the later version of the X570 Extreme, you can't. Now, the most obvious tell of this is that you can see the capacitors right there, right? But you can also see the memory traces, and so you can see those caps, but the caps aren't the thing that does it. No, you can see the memory traces. And on this version, you can't see anything because there's a shield over the memory, and that improves the signal integrity. And as to what what exactly is going on under that shield, Gigabyte won't tell me. That's a trade secret. Like, that's one of those things that is like, the motherboard vendors keep pretty guarded, is like, our memory topology is ours and we don't want anybody copying it. Though I think Gigabyte actually kind of got the idea of doing the shielded memory layouts from MSI, though they are doing doing it very differently. Like, on MSI boards, you have shielded memory. This is not a shielded one, or this one. This is shielded, right? So you can't see any of the memory traces, but you still have, like, capacitors in there. So, like, that's sort of, like, that's a shielded memory layout, but it's a different style shielded layout from what Gigabyte's doing. Did I miss anything important since then? Let's just do the super chat. Difference between old B550EF versus new B550XE. I don't think they did anything with the B550XE compared to the B550E/F. Like, I'm not sure, like, I don't have information from Asus, but I'd assume that's on the same memory topology. And I guess they just released it for Zen 3. X570 Aorus Master or ROG Crosshair Impact? What are you trying to do with the board? Because those are, like, very different. The Master is more like a Dark Hero, like a Dark Hero competitor rather than an Impact competitor. Well, B550 board do you think would pair well with a 5950X? This. Like, literally, I would, like, this is sort of like, if I was doing an AM4 build right now, this is like the motherboard I would start with. And then if there's like, oh, I don't like how many SATA ports it has, then I would be looking at some X570 boards. If I don't like how many M.2 slots it has, I'd be looking at some X570 boards. If I don't like the fact that it doesn't have a postcode, well, there's the B550 Steel Legend, and then you give up your memory overclocking range. Which is super frustrating. X470 MSI Gaming Pro Carbon VRM deal with 250-watt 3950X. If you have airflow, it should be fine. If you don't have any airflow, it's going to get really hot. What's the best $200 motherboard? Best is a strong word. Like, best for what? Best B550 for light overclocking. This right here. Seriously. Like, well, you say light overclocking. Like, this is actually great for heavy overclocking. Which RAM kit would you prefer? The new G-Skill 4266? GVK 16... What even is that? Give me a cast latency number, not a freaking part number. I can't even Google that. Good job. Also, I just don't care about the stock spec of most kits. You can manually tune the timings. Does it make sense to upgrade from Crosshair 7 to Crosshair 8 for 5950X? Not really. Like, depending on how you're using it, it really shouldn't make much of a difference. If a board has two 8-pin EPS connectors, will it work with a single 4-pin from the power supply? It will, but why would you want to do that? Like, that's a really bad idea, but it should still turn on. There might be some motherboard that's, like, clever enough to detect that you're only plugging in a single 4-pin, but most boards should just turn on and then melt the power connector. When you, like, load up the... Like, if you did that on a Threadripper, that would be so bad. On a mainstream Ryzen, like, with a 3600, you'd be fine. How is Asus Crosshair 8 formula for RAM OC with Dominator Platinum? 3200 CL16. So your biggest mistake right there is having a 3200 CL16 kit. So your motherboard, like, your motherboard is so much better than your memory kit that it honestly doesn't matter. Why do people buy 3200 CL16? Seriously, it's trash. I don't know why people keep buying it. Oh, I guess I did do a video on a good 3200 CL16 kit, but generally speaking, 3200 CL16 is trash. 3600 CL18 16 gigs to X2 B550M tough. Good idea. Yeah, I'd go for that. That doesn't, like, I don't see a problem with that. B550 Aorus Pro versus MSI B550 Unify. The Unify is $300 and, well, it does give you a bunch of PC M.2 slots. But the Unify is like $280. The Aorus Pro is $180. They're not even in, like, they're super far apart in terms of price. And personally, so here's the Unify. Like, this right here is basically a... Like, this is basically this. Except on B550 for some reason. Also, you don't get an X8 PCIe slot, and you might be looking at this like, oh my god, 4 M.2s. So how that works is they steal some of the CPU PCIe lanes to get 4 M.2 slots. And in my opinion, that's like you can just do that with an adapter card on this. Also, if you ever wanted to run multiple GPUs, this can do that. This can't. Or if you wanted to run a GPU and a particularly picky, like, PCIe add-in card that hates the AMD chipset, well, you can do that on this. You can't do that on this. Right? So that's kind of the thing. It's just like, this, in my opinion, is a bit too expensive. It also ends up in a similar price point to the X570 Taichi, which just kind of has more everything connectivity-wise. The only downside being the ASRock BIOS. So... yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the B550 Unify. Well, I like the Unify X for the memory. Like, I like the top half of the Unify X. And then the lower portion of it is just like, so what happened here? And why? What is the worst board? Some low-end ASRock thing for A520. B550 has Realtek LAN. Well, I've heard... So, the thing with the Realtek LAN is, like, as far as I know, the 2.5 gig Intel is even worse. So, yeah, you know, pick your poison. So, B550 Elite. Actually, let's take a look at that. So, that board is basically a whole lot of VRM attached to a whole lot of not much else. So, let's take... So, here it is, right? Actually, well... yeah, no, so now we're, like, approaching, like, MSI rear I/O territory. So this basically competes against this thing. Yeah. So that competes against this. Right, which... wait, what? Where did this come from? Must have been left behind. Man, I'm surprised my system hasn't, like, Firefox randomly slows down to a crawl sometimes. I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet. But, anyway. So... these two boards, I think, are, like, the closest competition to each other, both price-wise and feature-wise. And the thing is, so the Elite has the stronger VRM. But this has troubleshooting LEDs. This doesn't, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, overclocking on this thing, also this has 4 SATA ports, whereas this has 6. And the number of M.2 slots you have is the same. I guess maybe if you want the extra PCIe slot, the Elite has an advantage. Maybe if you prefer Gigabyte BIOS, you would go Gigabyte, but I generally would go MSI for BIOS. So that's kind of the comparison there. Oh man, I missed a bunch. What did I miss? Oh no. I missed another. Yeah, I did miss another super chat. So let's go through the super chats again. Have 32 gigs, 3200 CL18. Should I 3600 CL16 for 5900X? Wait, should you buy 3600 CL16 for a 5900X or should you overclock to that? Because you're probably not going to be able to overclock to that. And depending on what you're doing, it's not going to make that much of a performance difference. So, yeah, like, it depends. Like, if everything else in your system is already maxed out and you really want to spend more money, then, yeah, not go for it. But, like, you're not really, like, it's not going to be some massive difference, right? Like, when I do memory benchmarks, I very specifically choose workloads that are heavily affected by memory, which makes it look like the memory overclocking is more significant than it necessarily is. I have Team Group 16 gigs, 3600 C16. It uses Samsung BDI on Crosshair 8 Hero. Should be good speed timings to aim for. I would aim for 3800 CL 14, 15, 13. Actually, like, there's a range of timings, right? But, like, yeah, maybe like 3800, 14, like, best case scenario, you're probably looking at like 13, or no, 3800, 14, 13, 13. A more relaxed set of timings would be like 3800, 16, 15, 16, 15, 15. Though I guess if you're on a 5000 series, you might be able to go for 4000 once we get BIOS updates for 2000 FCLK. Just joined. In your opinion, best overall ITX or MATX X570 Mobo for gaming with overclocking? So he said best ITX board, right? Overall. He did say X570, but, like, may I introduce you to the B550i Aorus Pro? It'll save you a bunch of money, so that you can send more of it to me in super chats. Oh man, I feel awful for making that joke right now. Yeah, that was in bad taste, wasn't it? Anyway, but as for X570, like, my favorite ITX X570 board is definitely this right here. The thing is, this is $250 to $300, so this is really expensive. This is $180 and does most of what this does. Most. So I would look at these two and make up your mind between those two. Thomas Alaskan 50. Keep up the good work, Buildzoid. Love your channel. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for everything you do. It helps a lot of people. No USB-C header. Which doesn't have a USB-C header? Neither of them has a USB-C header. Wait, are you referring to the boards I chose or some other board? ASRock ITX 180. Yeah, but that's an ASRock motherboard. No, actually, if it's at the same price as the Pro, then it's actually not bad. Oh no, that's the wrong B550 ITX board from ASRock. Well, you can't blame, like, you can't complain about them giving you more choices. Oh, come on! Why is everybody's website so garbage? Like, you know what's incredibly like, ASRock's website, right? Like, look at this stupidity. Like, instead of organizing the motherboards by, like, platform, like a sensible person, they organize it by their freaking branding. No, what did I even click on? Why the hell are we here? What? Oh my god. No. Like, it's organized by branding. How stupid is that? Like, here's a bunch of Tai Chi boards that don't even have the same bloody chipset. Same here. And here, of course. Like Like, as far as I know, this chipset can't even overclock. Like, this is so dry. Like, these are so different chipsets. It's like, ugh. Like, who goes like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy a creator motherboard. No, it's like, I want this CPU, and then I need to find the appropriate motherboard for my CPU. And then there's the ASRock website, which just works completely backwards from that. I mean, Asus does the same thing, and I find it just as frustrating. Actually, Asus has the worst website for looking at motherboards. The worst. Because it's like, so do you want an ROG board? I don't know. Is it, like, probably not. Those are generally pretty overpriced. Anyway, let's take a look at this thing. Yeah, this seems reasonable. Oh, whoa, that supports 5400. Now I want to try this. Now I want to try that. If it actually does 5400, that would be really cool. The thing is, I think I'm pretty sure the VRM on the Gigabyte board will run cooler because the Gigabyte board has a... Well, I'm not sure actually. Yeah, so at the same price, these two, because the VRM on both of them is actually the same, I think, isn't it? 90 amp, 8 layer, and they don't mention 8 power phase. Yeah, so it's like the same VRM on both of them. Yeah, so these two might be interchangeable, honestly. So that's annoying, isn't it? Anyway, I think I missed another super chat. How's B550 compatibility with Zen 1? I have no idea. I've not tried it. You provided a service, and that was a good joke. Thank you, my good sir. Well, thanks for the second super chat. I can get a B550E from a friend for around 190, and I'm planning on 5900X. Is it a good choice, and what would be a good 2x16 RAM kit for fun OC? B550E at 190 from a friend. Yeah, I think that's a decent decision, isn't it? Yeah, like that's basically the same price as the B550 Aorus Pro. So if you like the feature set of the board, I don't really see a problem with that. As for a 2x16 kit, just look for like a 3200 CL14 2x16 or a 3600 1616 2x16 kit. What would you say about the Asus B550M Pro S version? There's an S? Oh my god, they're running out of names. Actually, that's been an issue with motherboards for ages. Actually, just general tech industry naming schemes are terrible. I'm not even aware that this board exists. This is the first time I've heard of it. So let's take a look. Oh, it has DR MOS. Oh man, that's actually pretty cool. That's actually really neat. How much does it cost? Because I don't think I've ever even seen this board. Oh, it's 130. That's actually really reasonable. Yeah, that's neat. That's a neat board. It's cool. Like, the biggest downside is that you don't have PCIe 4.0, but fun fact. Oops, what did I click on? I have too many windows open. I have no, get out of my way. Oh my god. There we go. So, fun fact. Let's get to this. Where is it? There. So, this is a thing. Oh my god, their website banner. Anyway, where is it? Performance summary. Yeah, so PCIe X16 3.0, And this is with a 3080. Is like barely, like basically the same speed as PCIe 4.0. Now, admittedly, there's a couple games where it's actually kind of significant. Like, okay, this is not one of those. This is also not one of those. That's like 2 FPS at 60. So, well, that's like 2%. That's if you don't measure it, you won't notice. Oh, okay. Well, 4 FPS. That's like 4%. Doesn't matter. 1%. That's less than 1%. Doesn't matter. There was one game that was like approaching 5%. Oh, this is it. Yeah. So Civ 6. You have like 6 FPS there at 150-ish. So that's kind of significant. But yeah, the rest of the games is just like they just don't care. It's like 1 frame for most of them, and even in most scenarios. Or if it's like 2 frames, it's at such high frame rate that it's effectively the same thing as like 1 FPS at 100. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I missed a super chat, so let's get to that. Does RAM speed really matter for Ryzen 5000? I have 32 gigs of 3200, 2700. Wait, with 2700 and B450, would like to reuse RAM when I switch to B550 and 5000 series. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter enough to go out like and buy a whole new memory kit. Also, you can probably, unless you have like 3200 AFR, you can probably overclock. So like, yeah, it's not that, well, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Like, it won't really, like, the biggest memory performance differences I'm aware of are, like, maybe 10%, which is, like, borderline for perceptibility. Building a computer and trying to decide between Crosshair 8 Hero, Aorus X570 Master, or the USB 2.0 disconnects and CMOS battery problem on the Gigabyte as prevalent as forums Reddit seem to depict. So right now, the USB 2.0 ports on Gigabyte motherboards seem to be like you have to disable C states, and that should fix. Like, I ran into the USB ports misbehaving, and for me fixing that was just disabling C states. But I'm not sure. Like, I unfortunately haven't tested that on my X570 boards yet, and I don't have an X570 Master. CMOS battery problems I've not run into at all, so I don't know. Maybe that's on a new revision of the board or something. So, yeah, unfortunately, the USB 2.0, I've run into that, but the CMOS battery problems I'm not sure about. And the Crosshair 8 Hero, like, I've heard that there's some USB issues basically on everything right now, because it seems to originate from the AGSA. BZ, I'm going to do a quick teardown of the RTX 3070 Aorus Master. Do you want pics of the board? Not really. I'm so behind on making content as is that the last thing I need is more stuff to add to the pile. So, thanks for the offer, though. C-states made my X99 Mobo not work. What, disabling them or turning them on? For MMOC, which voltage should I push? VSOC, VDD18, VDDP, DDR-VPP. So the only one of those that does anything is the VSOC voltage. The other 3 don't do anything, and you can just pretend they don't exist. BZ, should I keep my ballistics 3600 CL14 on my 5600X plus B450, or do I get anything by changing to Patriot Viper Steel 4400 and running 3800 CL14 like in your video? You could take your ballistic sticks to 3800 CL14 probably. And that would get pretty close to the Vipers in terms of performance. So no, it doesn't really make sense to spend that much money on a new memory kit. Why are B550 BIOS causing such trouble with memory and FCLK? I can't get my master above 3200 because AMD is screwing around in the AGSA again. If you want AMD's if you want to buy a Ryzen CPU and you don't want to deal with the launch month BIOS, buy it like a couple months after launch. X299, what is safe VCCIO? 1.35 max. Why does there seem to be a lack of... Also, VCCIO on X299 barely does anything. I want a B550 Aorus Elite in a giveaway. Should I use it instead of my B450F from Asus? Probably? What's the B450F? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Elite's just better than the B450F. Though right now the BIOS... The newest BIOSes for a lot of the AM4 motherboards are a mess. Her fix for USB 2.0 mouse hitching on X570 Master definitely worked for me. Good to hear that. Yeah, so it does seem to just be the same thing on all of the motherboards. The funny thing is, like, because AMD has so much control over the AGSA, if AMD creates a glitch, like, if AMD makes a mistake, then everybody has a problem. So it's like, hey... On the other, and the flip side to that is also there's not that much difference in like memory overclocking between motherboards most of the time, but the side effects are like, yeah, if AMD decides to start screwing around the AGSA, then there's like 6 versions of BIOSes that are completely unusable because AMD was testing stuff. Is there documentation anywhere on safe recommended VSOC for Zen Plus? Documentation, no, but you shouldn't go above 1.2 volts. What's the max volts to get a 1900 FCLK on CH8 Wi-Fi and 3700X? I would go 1.2 volts SoC, VDDG IO die 1.15, VDDG CCD 1, or 1.05. But the thing is, CCD voltage generally makes things less stable, not more stable. What do you think of MSI B550i Gaming Edge Wi-Fi? I think it's overpriced. Yeah, stop scrolling. But we can check that. Yeah, especially since I have PC Part Picker open right now. Oh, it's at 180 now, so that's not too bad. Wait, is it on sale right now? Yeah, so it's supposed to be $200. And actually, now that we're on Newegg, like, at 185, that's not a bad price, in my opinion, but... It's really comparable to the, like, B550i errors, the other ITX boards. So I guess if you really like MSI BIOS, then it makes sense, but... Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I would probably go with the Gigabyte or the ASRock or the... Well, the ITX Strix is 230, or at least was 230. Are you kidding me? Like, most of them haven't... Oh, I guess I should have just gone, like, ITX. Maybe that'll work? Okay, so... That's, like, 190-ish. Oh, whoa, this is going for 170. Yeah, so this is 180. And this is... Yeah, this... Freaking 240! Oh my god. And it has a worse VRM than its predecessor, which is like my least favorite part of the whole thing. But the problem is, the X570 board right now is... Oh no, this is actually... It's too... Oh, is that like second-hand or something? Is it like open box? Refurb. Okay, yeah, so open box. Yeah, but like, they have it for 250 right now, so... And yeah, it's in stock for 250. This is like my favorite ITX. This is okay, but I would probably get the ASRock or the Gigabyte instead. Anyway, what did I miss? Are you going to get an RX 6900 XT and play around with OCing it? I'm waiting for reviews. Well, I'm waiting for somebody else to confirm that we can't go over the 3 GHz limit, and if we can't go over the 3 GHz limit, I'm getting a 3090. I'm done with AMD. Like, it's just like, I'm over it. It's like, stop restricting the overclocking on your GPUs, and maybe I'll start buying them again. Not sold by new... Oh, so wait, it might not actually get fulfilled? And... Oh, it's not sold by Newegg again. Yeah, I don't know why Asus seems to want... Like, Asus seems to want to get rid of this board. Like, they're really pushing the B550i Strix. I suspect they make significantly more profit on the B550i version. The B550 Aorus Master was bundled with a 3060 Ti, so now I have to decide if it's the Mobo I want to build with or not. I mean, if you already have the Master, it's a good board. Well... Man, the dual, if you're gonna, like, the dual BIOS on the Master is just like 90, like, most of the complaints I've seen from people for older Gigabyte motherboards can be traced back to Gigabyte's terrible dual BIOS implementation, which is present on the Aorus Master, on the B550 Master. So yeah, that's. Are you familiar with the Reddit AM4 motherboard comparison table? I think I've seen it a couple times and didn't like it. Or I think I've stumbled across it a few times and basically ignored it. I can hit 3800 CL14 on my B die, 64 gigs, aggressive subtimings, but at 1.55 volts, fine for 24/7. Is it actually stable at 1.55 volts? Because 64 gigs of memory sticks, like, all sitting together tends to get pretty hot. And B die is temperature sensitive, stability-wise, so I'd be surprised if that was fully stable. Anything beyond Asus X570 Prime P is irrelevant. I would consider the X570 Prime P irrelevant. I would get a B550 instead. And then if I wanted a more connectivity board, X570 Taichi or X570 Unify. Yeah, if it's stable, I'd call it then I'd run it. I don't see a problem. Like, I'm surprised that it's stable, but if it is, go for it. What do you think of the X570 Tough Pro? I don't think it makes a lot of sense because it costs more and it doesn't really do much. Like, it doesn't significantly change anything from the original Tough Plus, and it costs like $40 more. What's the difference between OCing in tweaker menu and AMD overclocking menu? Well, in the AMD overclocking menu, you're way more likely to break something. Seriously, like the tweaker menu has stuff like sanitized for like user interaction, and the AMD overclocking menu is kind of like where you go when Gigabyte forgot to implement something. It's not a place I really like using. Is there any impactful difference between B550 Aorus Pro V2 and V1 for overclocking 5800X? There shouldn't be. There really shouldn't be. But if you can find a V2, I'd get the V2. But if you're stuck with a V1, then I wouldn't bother with getting the newer version. X570 chipset more advanced than the 550 chipset. It pulls more power, it needs a fan, and it gives you more SATA ports. Oh, and I guess you can run 2 SSDs off of it instead of 1. So I guess, like, technically, yes, the X570 chipset is more advanced, but if you don't actually, like, the chipset doesn't affect overclocking, it doesn't affect PCIe slots, or that, like, it doesn't affect the PCIe slots that much. Like, it's kind of like, what do you think of the X570 Meg Ace? I think the X570 Meg Ace was made redundant by the Unify. Seriously, I really don't get why that board is as popular as it is, because it is literally a Unify, but more expensive. Like, to the point that both of those boards use the exact same freaking PCB. So, here's the Unify. No, I wanted the gallery. No, stop rescaling. Stupid animated websites. Anyway, so, these two boards. Spot the difference. One of them is slightly, like, has a gold trim on it. That's the main difference. Also, the postcode on this one is in an incredibly stupid location. That's like it. That's literally it. And this one is $50 cheaper. And then if you look at the rear I/O, oh, look at that. The 1 gig LAN went missing. That's the only difference. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Unify makes the Ace completely bloody pointless. How did the Z390 RAM OC went? What Z390 RAM OC went? MSI X570 Meg Ace for $200. Is it a good deal? For $200, that's a good deal. But if you're paying more than what you pay for a Unify, then get a Unify. If the Unify is cheaper than the Ace, get the Unify every time. Thanks, Emmanuel, for the €1. Oh, Stig Eric, do you think that 1.365 volts at load and 1.435 idle is safe for at 24/7 on my 10900K and 5.3 gigahertz? My temp is max 85 degrees under load, custom loop. Oh yeah, that's safe. I would totally daily that. That sounds reasonable to me. I'm about to buy an ASRock PG Velocita X570 motherboard. It just came out. Should I go for it? No. Why are you buying an X570 Velocita? Like... So, here's the Velocita. And... like, basically, I would consider this the Gigabyte Aorus Pro test. How much better is my motherboard and compared to the B550 Aorus Pro, and how much more does it cost? And if the difference isn't very big, then get the Pro. So here's the Pro, right? And here's the Velocita. So this has two M.2 slots. Unless you're using PCIe 4.0 SSDs, this is functionally the same as the two M.2 slots on the B550 Aorus Pro. This has 8 SATA ports, this has 6, but if you're not using 8 SATA ports, then it doesn't really matter. The VRM on both of these boards is perfectly capable of overclocking a 16-core. Where's the rear I.O. picture? Here's the rear I.O. on this. Here's the rear I.O. on this. So you have BIOS flashback. Well, guess what? You've got BIOS flashback on the Gigabyte board as well. You've got 2.5 gig LAN. You've got 2.5 gig LAN on the Gigabyte board as well. This doesn't have Wi-Fi. If you don't use the Wi-Fi, that doesn't matter. Don't pay for it. If you do use the Wi-Fi, then yeah, I can totally get getting a motherboard with Wi-Fi. But if you don't use it, why are you spending extra money to get a 20... like, literally that Wi-Fi block, like, it is basically, I think, like a $15 value add to the motherboard. If you don't use it, you've just wasted $15 on a Wi-Fi module that you're never going to use. Yeah, it's like, and I guess you do get the postcode. I will admit the postcode is very useful, but I'm pretty... actually, this is supposed to do 5,000. Oh, so this has a new memory topology, doesn't it? Yeah, this does look like a new memory topology. So the memory overclocking on them is probably comparable. But, yeah, it's like, so, I don't know. Do you really want to spend, what is it, $70 more for a postcode? Really? V2. Oh, yeah, I should have pulled up the V2. It's so annoying that, like, Google pulls up the V1 every time. Oops. Oops. I thought I had that turned off. Like, you drag a window and shake it, and then everything disappears. I thought that was turned off. Apparently, it wasn't turned off. So yeah, V2 Aorus Pro. Get that. Not the regular Aorus Pro. But really, like, any motherboard you're considering for AM4, look at an Aorus Pro, and then figure out what the Aorus Pro doesn't do that your more expensive motherboard does do, and why you need it. Because if you can't do that, then you're spending more money than you have to. And there's also, like, the B550 Tomahawk and B550 Tough. And those should also be used in that comparison. Currently running a 3950X on B450i Gaming Plus IC after AGSA rollout. Assuming I have ample airflow, can I run 5950X on stock with same MOBO without issue? Many thanks, more power to you. I mean, the 5950X at stock settings runs the same amount of power as the 3950X. So yeah, after you get a BIOS update, I don't really see a problem running a stock 5950X in that board. What's your view on the Gigabyte Vision D compared to the Aorus Master? The Vision D is basically better in every way than the Master. Except the VRM and the... give me a second. SATA ports, yeah. Okay, well now I've ruined everything. Where did all my windows go? Okay, so that's the important one, because I actually need that for when I shoot my video. But let's close that. There's the Velocita. Wait, which one is this? That's the X570 Velocita. So... yeah, just like compare against like the $180 B550 motherboards, in my opinion, under most circumstances are optimal for basically anyone. And if you can look at those and then figure out why you don't like them, then you can go buy a more expensive motherboard. Because you do have a reason. Don't just pointlessly buy an X570 board. Right? Like, it's just dumb, as far as I'm concerned. And now I'm... there we go. That's the... There. I have 2 windows of the Velocita open. $70 for Wi-Fi. You can get B550 boards with Wi-Fi at around 180. What did I miss? Under the assumption of 5950X plus 3090 and assuming we ignore price, thoughts on X570 Aorus Extreme versus the new Dark Hero. Get a B550 instead. Seriously. How does your 3090 care if the PCIe slot comes... Like, because consider this. The PCIe slot your 3090 is plugged into goes directly to the CPU. Right? So the 3090 literally doesn't have any idea if you have an X570 chipset or a B550 chipset. And also, so the Dark Hero is a cool motherboard if you like fiddling with overclocking. The Aorus Extreme is kind of... Like, is just pointlessly... Like, the Aorus Extreme kind of does a lot of everything, but it's just like, if you actually know what you need, I would just get a cheaper board. Like a Unify. Or a Tai Chi. Or a, like, X570 Tai Chi. Not the B550. That one's dumb. Because it costs almost the same as the X570. AM5600X with B450 Steel Legend, you'll be fine. I got a 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 CL16 and an X570 Tomahawk for my 5800X. And that doesn't really work. Like, I mean, I wouldn't get the Tomahawk. I would have got a Aorus Pro, as you can probably tell by most of this live stream at this point. Like, I'm assuming the 3600 CL18 Vengeance LPX was reasonably cheap. And if it works, then, you know, that's fine. I don't really see a problem with that. Next super chat. I'm here to thank you. I changed the Crucial Ballistics to Dark Pro and B-Die is so much better. It booted 3600 CL14 at 1.45. Sold the other RAM. Okay. I mean, I don't think it really made much of a difference to your system, but sure. I'll take the thank you. Tai Chi versus Razer Tai Chi. Dumb and Dumber, the motherboards. Actually, no. X570 Tai Chi is good, but isn't the Razer Tai Chi, like, super overpriced? Actually, we're not going to do that on this screen. Wait, is it even a Razer Tai Chi? Like, is it even an X570 board? It is X570. Ooh, I wonder if they redid the memory topology. Oh my god, look at this. It has a loading screen. It's horrible. Also, I don't think they changed the memory topology. If they had changed the memory topology, I would have been like, oh, that's kind of neat. But I don't think they did that. So it's literally a more expensive version of the regular X570 Tai Chi. It looks less horrible, at least. Oh, and this is how you get back to the old website. Nice. Yeah, they didn't change the memory topology. So this is on the old X570. It looks nicer, a lot nicer, but it's also like, I don't know why I'd pay to, like, the B550 Aorus Pro also looks good. This is like, why this stream is, does the motherboard layers have a lot to say on 4x16? Yes. Actually, even 4x8 can be pretty significantly affected by having a 4-layer board instead of a 6. So basically, if you want, like, if you don't want to worry about your memory overclocking support, get a 6-layer B550 board as a minimum. A 6-layer B550. And actually, the funny thing is, a 6-layer old topology X570 board is going to get absolutely wiped, completely wiped out by a 6-layer B550. Yeah, personally, like, so I would like this if we didn't have the silly gears. Like, it's just like, it's a motherboard. Why do we have gears on a motherboard? I don't know. B550i killer nick keeps taking a dump. The B550i has a killer nick? I had no idea. I was pretty sure it was Realtek. Yeah, it's Realtek. It's not killer. How the hell do you have killer nick on a B550i? Oh, wait, ASRock B550i. And that has a killer nick. And that takes a dump. Okay, well, that's killer nick, so... Hi, do you think there could be any problems or limitations if I put a Ryzen 9 5900 or 5950 in an X470 Gaming Pro Carbon? After there will be BIOS update. Your memory overclocking isn't going to be as good as if you used an X570 or a B550 motherboard, but other than that, like, the CPU itself should run just fine. How do you know how many layers? Because the motherboard vendors tell me. And you can kind of tell from the SP, like, you can tell... There's a way to tell, but it's kind of complicated to explain. I don't really feel like explaining it. Like, with Gigabyte boards, it's literally just a case of I've been told. MSI boards, I've been told. And also, you can just see it on some other boards. Like, if you just look at the pictures of the motherboard, you can very quickly tell if you have, like, four-layer boards are generally pretty obvious, except for ASRock. ASRock has a four-layer topology that manages to not have any visible traces. But with those boards, you can tell that it's 4 layers because they only go up to 4733 instead of, like, 5000. Because the good 6-layer topologies goes up to 5000. So basically, if the board goes up to like 4666 or 4733, then it's not great. Bought B550F Strix before I found this channel. Currently OC5950X at 1.3 volts and it's making screeching sound when it's under max load. Is it normal? Yeah, that sounds like coil whine. That's pretty normal. Unfortunately, like, that's a common side effect of, like, SMD inductors. And unfortunately, good inductors generally come in an SMD package, and, like, it's just a case of, like, inductors aren't really designed with noise considerations in mind. So a lot of the high-end inductors also happen to be rattle cans. How much, if at all, can I expect to overclock a 3600 1920 Hynix CJR with 4 sticks of 16 gigs each? Much at all. X570 Master. 3800 might be possible. And I say might be because I've never... I just don't run 64 gig setups if I can avoid it. Because 64 gigs is way too much RAM in my opinion, but... Yeah, X570 Unify or X570 Taichi for memory OC Unify. Unify, definitely Unify. Like, the main reason... Like, it's actually kind of funny because on paper... So this is sort of my... Like, the working list that I have for the Gamers Nexus Roundup video is that the... Like... On paper, the Unify is just worse than the Taichi, right? Like, the Taichi just does kind of, like, feature-wise, the Taichi does almost everything the Unify does, and it's cheaper. However, there is one minor issue with the Taichi. This is an ASRock motherboard, and this is an MSI motherboard, and MSI's BIOS is just so much easier to work with, and this thing is also really good at memory overclocking, whereas this is just kind of okay. So, yeah, if you actually care about, like, the main reason the Unify stays on the list is, like, this is really good at overclocking. Whereas this just kind of has a bunch of features. Like, this will still run 3800 CL14 even on, like, 4x8 memory sticks. It won't run, like, well, like, if you're going for super high frequencies, and I'm not sure if you'll have problems, like, 4x16 will probably complain a bit more on this than it'll complain on this. And you really shouldn't run 4x16. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is, like, when I say a motherboard is bad at memory overclocking, to me that means it's, like, 100 megahertz, like, 200 megahertz worse than another motherboard. Which a lot of the time, like, performance-wise, 200 megahertz of memory clock just doesn't make that much of a difference. Why not X370 Crosshair 6 Extreme for $120 new? Because I'm pretty sure Asus wants to forget that they ever released that motherboard, and that's why it's going for $120. And I don't think it's like a fundamentally bad board. I think they just don't want to bother with supporting it. Do you think 2x16 B-die will do 3600, 12, 12, 12? No. You need way too much voltage for 3600, 12, 12, 12. That's not, like, it's not a CPU thing. It's literally just, like, memory sticks need a lot of voltage for 12, 12, 12 at 3600. Because the CPUs can do 3600, 12, 12, 12 just fine. You can even do 3800, 12, 12, 12 just fine. It's just, like, the memory sticks need absolutely ridiculous voltages at that point. And it's never going to be stable. Not really OC questions. If I have issues with stability on Realtek 2.5 gig NIC, should I RMA the board or is there a way to fix it? Depends if the stability issues are like a hardware fault or if it's just Realtek being Realtek. If it's Realtek being Realtek, then you'd basically have to replace the NIC with something that isn't Realtek. I don't know. I would probably just look into buying a 1 gig Intel adapter PCIe card. That seems like the most convenient solution, though admittedly you end up just spending more money, which isn't really an ideal way of solving problems, but yeah, the thing is, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get that past RMA, because if you send in the board where it's like, oh, my LAN isn't working the way I expect it to work, and they test it, and they go like, nope, this is exactly how it's supposed to work, then you're kind of boned, aren't you? Do you have any opinions on the Asus Dark Hero board? I think it's a really neat board that costs too much money. Especially considering, like, it doesn't even take advantage of a lot of the X570 features, right? Like, it has an X570 chipset, and it just doesn't do much with it. So here's the Dark Hero, right? And so postcode, cool. Does this even have dual BIOS? I don't think it has dual BIOS, which is kind of dumb. Dual BIOS is dual BIOS is nice to have. Like, when it's properly implemented, dual BIOS is awesome. When it's badly implemented, it's terrible. But, Asus knows how to implement a good dual BIOS, so it's just kind of like, yeah, I wish that was present, but I have the postcode. There's the dynamic boost and static OC thing in the BIOS, which is really cool. I'd love to mess with that. I don't think it makes that much of a performance difference in the real world, which is why I don't really have the board in any list, because it's like, I doubt it makes more than like a 5% difference in terms of actual performance, and if it's 5%, well, you won't notice it unless you're testing it. The thing is, this is $400. You get two M.2 slots, and it's an X570 board. And it's like, to me, one of the defining features of X570 is that the chipset can run two M.2 SSDs. And then there's this board where it's like, yeah, no, you get basically the same number of M.2 slots as a B550 motherboard, except you get to pay twice as much as a B550 motherboard. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, the funky overclocking thing in the BIOS sounds cool and all, and the new memory topology also sounds cool, but it doesn't sound $400 cool, considering I can get the memory overclocking on a B550 board, right? Like, if you're going to have an X570 chipset, I better see, like, shitloads of M.2 slots. Come on. Why else would you be using that chipset? Do you have... Okay, so I covered the Dark Hero. Thanks for the 100 Czech crowns. Hi man, I need some buyer's advice. I have a 3090 ROG, 9900K, and gaming at 30... What the hell is that resolution? Should I get a new AMD CPU or just wait for possible DDR5 next year? Money is no object, but I also don't want to waste. If your system's performing fine right now, I don't see a reason to upgrade. Like, unless you're playing some game where you feel like the performance is inadequate, I wouldn't upgrade. Buildzoid, I have a very important question. What is your favorite snack? I don't know. I don't really have a favorite snack. Thoughts on ASRock B550 Extreme 4? It's literally a Steel Legend with a different color scheme. The Steel Legend is cheaper. Buy the Steel Legend instead. BZ, your stream is stuttering. Yeah, I can't do anything about it. OBS says I'm pushing all the bits that I'm supposed to be pushing. Like, OBS says everything is fine. YouTube is telling me it's not fine, but I can't see. I can't see why it isn't fine on YouTube's end. What's your view on the Vision D compared to the Asus Pro X570 Ace? I like the Vision D. Like, I think the Vision D is Gigabyte's best B550 motherboard. Mostly because it doesn't have the stupid dual BIOS implementation of the Master. Why don't you like the B550 Taichi? Because it's $300. And it has basically the same feature set as the... Actually, I think it's just worse than the X570 Taichi in terms of features. Right, so let's close this thing. So here's our lovely X570 Taichi. Here's our B550 Taichi. So you've got like the same rear I/O as you'd get on the X570 board. You get... oh, I think this actually has SLI support, but you also get that on the X75 board. You get 2.5 gig LAN, which you don't get on the X570 board, but that doesn't really... Oh, wait, X570 board. Anyway. So you don't get that on the X570, I guess. Oh, wait, no, this has 3-way crossfire, so it doesn't do 3-way SLI. Wait a minute. How are the PCIe slots assigned ASRock? Because I was tricked by this before. So dual at Gen 4 X8. Okay, so it can do... Oh, but they didn't pay for the SLI license. Aha. Ah, makes perfect... Okay, that explains it. Right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just didn't pay for the SLI license, so it doesn't support SLI. Which the X570 board, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, the X570 board has an SLI license, so that's one more in favor of the X570. I wanted to check how many M.2 slots this has, and I'm blind, apparently. So, 4 SATA, 4 more SATA, 1 Hyper M.2, and another Hyper M.2. So you've got 2 M.2 slots and 8 SATA ports, whereas here you have 3 M.2 slots and 8 SATA ports. So why you would buy the B550 Taichi, I have no idea. Especially considering it costs basically the same amount of money as the X570 Taichi while literally doing less stuff. Oh, and the stream's just gone to like 240p. I have 5,300 kilobits per second uploading. I don't know why YouTube is having a problem. MSI Meg Ace is made irrelevant by the Unify. Seriously, buy a Unify. The Ace doesn't do anything. The only thing the Ace does that the Unify doesn't do is it adds a 1 gig LAN port. B550 Strix E at 210. Reasonable for moderate OCing. The B550 Aorus Pro can also do that. And this is 180. Seriously, every single motherboard you want to consider, you should compare against this motherboard first, as far as I'm concerned. So, okay, so it just went to 240p on my end. B550 Aorus Pro versus B550 Aorus Elite. What's the difference? The B550 Aorus Elite uses a 4-layer PCB and is much, much worse at memory overclocking. And you don't get any troubleshooting LEDs. So, not only is the board just kind of bad at memory overclocking, it won't even, like, help you. So, yeah, does the Unify overclock RAM better than B550 Aorus Master with 5800X? I'm pretty sure the Unify loses to the Master, but I've not had a chance to test that yet. Like, the Gigabyte B550 boards for memory overclocking are absolutely insane. And I'm pretty sure this loses to them. Like, the 6-layer B550 Gigabyte boards. Also, the X570 refresh boards from Gigabyte are insane as well, but because they're on the same topology as the B550s, but yeah, not had a chance to like make absolutely certain that the Unify, because the thing is, I don't think I ever managed to do 4800 CL14 or 4800 CL15 on the Unify, but I have done that on the Master just very easily. Is the X570 Unify worth the extra money over the X570 Tomahawk? If you're asking that question, why wouldn't you just buy a B550 board? Seriously, the X570 Tomahawk has a very, very similar feature set to like a B550 Tomahawk or a B550 Aorus Pro or a B550 Tough. The B550 Tough, like all three of those boards that I just named off are $180. Why don't you get one of those instead? Because you obviously don't know why you would buy a Unify or a Tomahawk. Like, seriously, like, figure out with motherboards.